Call to order for the Watertown City Council meeting for March 21st, 2022. We will start by having a prayer by Councilman Vilhauer.
Please rise if you're able. Dear Heavenly Father, we gather tonight with hearts full of gratitude. We have the promise of spring and the new life that comes with it, and so much to be grateful for all around us. Now we pray especially and are grateful especially for this community and those that serve in all capacities throughout the community and the area. Now we ask you give this body up here wisdom to do your will as you would have it be done here on earth for us, for you, for your glory. And all God's people said, Amen.
Amen. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Finance Officer Bob Zine, would you please call the roll?
Okay, Bueller, absent. Danforth?
Here.
Holeen?
Here.
Paulson? Shetty?
Here.
Tupper?
Here.
Vilhauer?
Here.
Thank you.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda. Made by Councilman Shetty, seconded by Councilman Tupper. Any conversation on that? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We'll move on to the public comment section tonight, and we have a special presentation for a special individual, someone very close to the community who has been doing a lot of work. I would like to see would you like to stand up while we are reading a proclamation and anything like that? So for those of you who know, I'll just read the proclamation, So this is a mayoral proclamation. Whereas people from every walk of life inspire the citizens of Watertown and the surrounding areas with their devotion to serving those in our community, and whereas the mission of the Watertown Volunteer Center promotes volunteerism in our area and community and connects and empowers businesses and individuals with opportunities to serve the community, and whereas we can learn to follow in the footsteps of Shar, carved by leading by example, to serve others and our community, and whereas we gather today to recognize Shar for her passion and efforts over the past 18 years to help make Watertown a better community, now therefore I, Reed Holeen, Mayor of the City of Watertown, South Dakota, do hereby proclaim March 21st, 2022 as Shar Torgerson Day in the community because of her dedication, hard work, and many years of service to our community has touched many lives. I think Councilman Tupper would also like to say something before we present you with something.
Well, I've known Char ever since I was a little kid, I guess, but that's why I didn't put the years in there, Char. But I've had the opportunity to work with Char, not only some through the volunteer center, but also on other boards. And I've never known anybody that has had so much compassion for an organization as what Char has had. And, well, I shouldn't say that. I'm sure you still do for the Volunteer Center. Every event that Watertown has put on for many, many years, Char has been a key role into that. And an average of, 10,000 hours a year? Average. And when I was visiting with her not too long ago, that's what's on the books, not counting the people that volunteer for something all the time and never report it. So she has truly been an advocate for the volunteers of our city, helping run a lot of different events. Without her, that leadership has just been second to none. And I mean, she went as far as doing most of her own fundraisers. I remember eating a lot of those candy bars that you brought to work. But it's truly been my pleasure to have been able to work with you over the years, and thank you very much. And this is well deserved. So thank you.
Before we approve tonight's agenda, we have, Councilman Vilhauer, yes.
Can I have 30 seconds of
Yes.
personal privilege?
Yes.
As of 2:06 p.m. this afternoon, Darla and I had a granddaughter enter our world, so we're pretty excited about that.
I think, come on.
Somebody may want to read it from up here.
It says, I'm not retired, I'm a professional grandpa. So, thank you very much, Councilman. Congratulations, that's fantastic. So, before we approve tonight's agenda, we've got some shaking around to do. In part because we moved the council meeting earlier tonight. There are some people who would probably like to testify on some topics and we are not sure when they're going to show up. So we're going to just bounce around and we're going to do some of our public presentations from our departments first. That's where we're going to start off at. So we're going to play a little bit loose tonight, so just bear with me. But what we're going to do is we're going to start off by going with item H, and then we're going to go I and J, and then we're going to see how much time is progressing, and then once it gets closer to 5:30, then we'll probably switch to the regular agenda. And two other changes. We are going to strike item U off of the topics for tonight. That is the letter of intent. We are striking that simply because we have some more questions that we wanted to address privately with the NAHL and their commissioner before bringing it out to the public. We're still very much in favor of that, but we just wanted to do our due diligence ahead of time. And item S is going to be moved forward on the agenda. We'll probably tackle that first once we get to the regular agenda of the night. So it'll start with H. We'll move on, then we'll go to S, and then the regular agenda items in order. So, Councilman Paulson?
I will be recusing myself from letter R.
Letter R, okay. Oh, jeez. With that, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the adjusted agenda. Moved by Councilman Paulson, seconded by Councilman Danforth. Not Paulson, Vilhauer, sorry. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. With that, we'll start with item H, a presentation by the Watertown Police Department on the 2021 annual report. Chief Toomey, happy belated birthday. And Assistant Chief Remmers, nice guitar version of happy birthday posted on Facebook.
I'll be taking requests. Good afternoon, Council, Mayor, City Manager. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to present to you our year-end report. In front of each of you, we did give you the packet. I have Assistant Chief Ryan Remmers here with me, as well as 911 Manager Troy Van Duzen to answer any of your questions. I just want to give a little introduction and say how proud I am of the men and women of the police department. They've done an incredible job in 2021 and continuing into 2022. It's been a year of change with a new form of government. I'm a new chief. There's been all sorts of change going on, and the men and women of our department haven't missed a beat. They're highly motivated, they're highly engaged, and they're highly proud to work for our community. We've gone through organizational change as far as our core values and our organizational structure. We've implemented many programs that you're going to hear about in Ryan's presentation. So I just wanted to send a message out to all the men and women of our department. Thank you. I also want to thank the community. Without them, we couldn't be as strong as we are. Our community partnerships are hugely important to us. We're fortunate here to live in Watertown. We don't see the pressures that many police departments do see across the nation, and we have the support of the community. So I am honored and humbled to be the chief of police here, and it's only because of the men and women of the police department that we have success. So with that, we're going to start with a video that Assistant Chief Remmers put together, and then he's going to go through the presentation. Good job, Ryan. So with that, we're going to open it up to the presentation. Just so the public knows, our year-end report is out on our website at watertownpd.com. The statistics are used as societal indicators to identify trends and places where we would devote our resources to. One good example is the mental health officer. We started seeing a trend in that area the last few years, and we were able to be proactive and implement that program.
Probably about 10 minutes to get through some of this, maybe a little bit less. I know we've got a deep agenda tonight. As Chief Toomey talked about, the kind of theme for this last year seemed to be change and new. There's a lot of stuff going on at the police department that involved quite a bit of change, a lot of new faces, a lot of new programs, a lot of new ideas being tossed around, and a lot of new benefits for the community as a result of those ideas and programs. We talked about a lot of this, but the three new positions that I'd like to touch on for just a second is our mental health officer. Alexis Spicey was featured in a Kello article here just last week and a week before that in the public opinion article. Both of those did a nice job of explaining to the community and the surrounding area what she does for our community and how much she means to our department and to our citizens. And then obviously Troy Van Duzen is our new communications manager. He started in July of this last year. And that was a nice addition to our department and let somebody focus on the 911 center 100% of the time instead of how it was before that, where we were splitting some time between police duties and 911 duties. And then some of you may or may not know we have a new community resource or a community service officer. So our former school resource officer, Chad Strickers, was moved into a new position that we created about midway through last year, at about the beginning of the school year, and handles a lot of various duties related to, lobby calls, and he goes out and does some work out at the airport and does some presentations, and there's quite a bit of things that take some of the pressure off the other officers for some of the things that he can handle. So a lot of new people, new programs. The three biggest ones that you probably heard about are Color with a Cop. That was kind of a creation. I think it was Alexis Spicey that kind of came up with that program, our mental health officer, that she really spearheaded it and ran with it last year. And then To Protect and Serve Ice Cream. You saw us out giving out ice cream on some hot summer days last year. And then Coffee with a Cop. We kind of revived that program from many years ago and had some fun with that for a few different events. And then some new partnerships too. We rely on our partners within the community to help facilitate a lot of these programs and to make sure that our message gets out, and that we can't do a lot of that stuff without the great partnerships we have within our community. We'll take a look at our 911 center first of all here. As I mentioned, Troy Van Duzen is our new 911 communication manager. Also this last year we enrolled here locally and then also at a state level the text to 911. So that's kind of a new development for our entire state. Allows people to text to 911 when they can't call. So the message there is and always has been, call if you can, text if you can't. Just some statistics related to the 911 center. I think it's kind of impressive when you look at this that that red outline thing is 95% of the calls that they take. 95% of the 911 calls get answered within the first 10 seconds that they hit our phone system. So that's kind of impressive, considering that at sometimes for some incidents we get multiple 911 calls in at the same time, and they're answering them relatively quickly on there. And then if you just look at the total number of calls for service that our 911 center handles, you got to remember this is a 6-county operation, so it's bigger than the Watertown Police Department's 24,000 calls for service, at 47,000 calls for service. But it gets even bigger than that. There are a lot of phone calls that come in that don't get logged as a call for service, and that number is 63,000 total phone calls that come in and out of that 911 center. So they stay pretty busy in there. I think next we'll take a look at our records office. And the only thing that I'd really like to point out here, we've had 2 long-term employees, Gene Barthel and Tracy Swenson, in our records office. But we tried something new a couple of years ago with getting a new machine that allows us to do electronic fingerprinting in the front lobby. And that number down there, 348 fingerprints that we took throughout the year. That translates to about $5,200 in revenue for the city. So not huge, but it's nothing to laugh at either. It's a little bit extra revenue that we're able to basically pay off that machine that we purchased a couple years ago within the first 6 months of us putting that into play. Our animal control function, 1,600 calls per month is what our animal control officer and our patrol officers take. But that's a really vital part of our service to the community. They stay busy with all different kinds. You saw the picture of the skunk on there. You know, sometimes Chris Christensen here gets to deal with some things that I'm glad he has to deal with and I don't have to deal with. But he stays pretty busy doing that, and 1,600 calls a month is quite a bit. And then we've got just a slide here on our vehicle maintenance. These we lost one of these guys. Jason left us recently. Usually our part-time mechanic positions are filled by people that have mechanics jobs full-time elsewhere, and then they come in and help us out in the evening hours. And we lost Jason, but we're still clicking along with one of them here. But these guys are pretty important to saving us a lot of money. The amount of money that we pay them in salary is pretty minimal compared to the amount of money that they save us in in-house repairs that we'd have to take elsewhere to have done. So that's been a huge thing for us. Just some details about our training. We're always kind of impressed with the amount of training hours that we can get done with the limited budget. For the past maybe dozen years or so, we've had an $8,000 training budget. And on the police side of things there, we're able to accomplish 9,000 hours of training with $8,000 of budget. So that's actually, when you think about us, 225 hours of training for each officer, assuming all 40 officers get the equal amount of training. So it's quite a bit of training that we're able to accomplish with that relatively small amount of money. Now, what's nice is this year for 2022, we were able to raise that from $8,000 up to $12,000 for the training budget. Yes, Mayor, do you got a question? Okay. So we're looking forward to that. We got an extra $4,000 to put towards some training that'll allow us to go to some different conferences and attend some more training that won't be done necessarily in-house like we do now. And then on the dispatch side of things, they get on average about 88 hours of training with a $3,000 training budget. So they have even a smaller budget with fewer people, but we're able to spread that out pretty well and get a lot of training for the amount of money.
Go back one screen.
One screen.
I love the picture of you guys down there in the bottom left corner. Your eyes were pretty bright during that training, and Mayor, you did a good job.
Thank you for not mentioning how I died in that training exercise.
From an internal affairs perspective, it's always kind of nice for us to go back and look at this and see how few of complaints that we actually get throughout the year. When you consider that we have 24,000 calls for service or 47,000 calls for service if you're talking about the call volume that goes through the dispatch center. And we had a total of 10 calls that resulted in a complaint generated. And really, it's even kind of more impressive than that, because some of those 10 calls, we document everything, first of all. Anytime somebody calls in to complain, we document and investigate that and do our best to do a thorough, fair, complete investigation. But some of those 10 are actually not called in by the public, but it's that our supervisors notice policy violations and we bring those forward. So it's 1 in every 2,400 calls results in a complaint. That's pretty astounding. It tells me our people are doing a really good job in treating people professionally and with a lot of empathy. So this is the kind of the meat and potatoes of our annual report is our crime statistics and then how we compare them back against previous years. So in your packets here, we're kind of jump through some of that and start on, I think it's about page 9 or 10 or so is where you're at, in case you're following along on there. There's a couple of stats that as we go through this, I just want to point out. Sometimes they're good things, sometimes they're bad things. But we were happy we made it through the entire year without having a fatal accident in town. And it's been a while since we've had that before. But overall, traffic crashes were down slightly. So we're happy anytime we can have an impact on traffic crashes. But 0 fatalities. On the not so positive side, though, as most of you know by now, we had 12 suicides committed last year within our community. And that's twice the next highest number of any other year in recorded history. So it's something that, of course, we're dealing with and always open to suggestions and partnerships, something that we're taking a look at really closely and see if we can't reverse that trend in 2022 here. And then again, just our total calls for service. This first section here is a calls for service section. So that's basically just how the calls come into our department through the 911 center. It doesn't necessarily mean that's how they end up being, but it gets labeled an arson or an embezzlement call. So we had 24,000 calls for service that our people responded to and investigated. And then on the arrest side of things, we're always kind of happy when arrests go down because we know that our people are working just as hard as maybe the previous year when arrests weren't down. So they're doing all the same stuff. It's just that there aren't as many people out there to arrest. We take that as a good thing. So DUI arrests were up 29%. So that was in part due to we started a grant that focused on DUI investigations in October of last year. So sometimes you're going to see an uptick in arrests when we're focusing specifically on those with an officer designated for DUI enforcement. Marijuana arrests were down. That kind of goes without saying. It's with the recent nature of the state laws maybe taking shape or changing in significant ways. We're going to see a decrease in marijuana arrests. And then also with just total or drug arrests were being down, probably again as the same result of some of the legislation changes. Domestic aggravated assaults were down, and just basically assault arrests were down in general, which we like to see. And again, that's another one of those situations where our officers are required by law to make arrests in those domestic situations. So it's not like we're choosing to arrest fewer people, there are fewer people committing crimes. So that's why that goes down a little bit. And then the last little slide for adult arrests here is that in general, arrests were down this year. In fact, they were the lowest that we've seen since 2014, it looks like. So down 14% compared to the previous year and down 19% over the 5-year average. So we look at that as a good trend. Juvenile arrests, for the most part, those went up slightly, but there is a logical explanation for why they went up. You've got the change to some of the tobacco laws recently has an impact on that. If I scroll back to a slide here, we can look at the tobacco arrests here, how they went up significantly. And then also our runaways and our school attendance, the compulsory attendance things. Those three stats amount for the entirety of the increase from the 2020 juvenile arrest numbers to the 2021 juvenile arrest numbers. So without those three things in there, juvenile arrests would have been just holding steady. And then we get to traffic citations. In general, our people are working hard. It's nice to know that for the 1,707 traffic citations with a fine associated with them that we issued, our people also issued 4,300 warning tickets. So that's 2.5 warning tickets, I think, to every one traffic ticket that we issued. That's always a good thing that we look at. Our people are exercising good discretion and stopping people and making good positive contacts out there, along with, using the actual citations when necessary too. And I believe that's all that we have. Does anybody have any questions for either Chief Toomey or I, or maybe?
I do want to make a comment. You know, in my 22 years here, I don't know if there's been a better year-end report, and I think it's an indicator, as I stated earlier, it's a societal indicator. I think it's an indicator of a healthy city. I think when people are happy and healthy and working and enjoying the quality of life, crime goes down. So I believe that's part of it. So we'd be happy to answer questions. Like I said, we got our 911 manager here as well. So.
Thank you very much, Chief Toomey. Any questions from the council? Councilman Tupper. Yeah, comments, questions, anything?
You know, this started quite a few years back, you know, so it's, thank you guys for continuing it. But if you look at the Watertown Police Department, most people nowadays, there's not much respect for police officers. I don't think that's so much in Watertown as it is in a lot of other places. And in the world we live in today, unfortunately, that comment is true. But you guys run more of a, I'm trying to think of how to say it, public service. I mean, if you look at the things that you guys are involved in, the things you guys have done over the last few years, and like I say, I know that's been going on for years with things like DARE and Camp Chance, and now you've added a couple more. And I've seen firsthand some of the things that your officers have done in the community. You know, some things that they go in above and beyond their call of duty just to make somebody's day a little bit better. And I commend you and your whole staff for that.
Can I say something to that, Randy? It's it's nice to have that pointed out. Sometimes I almost feel guilty doing what I do or what we do for a living, because I think I go to the county fair every day and grab some lunch, and almost inevitably every single day somebody over at county fair stops me and thanks me for my service to the community. And I'd be willing to bet that if I lived somewhere else, I wouldn't get that. Our job is only as good, or only as good as it is, because of the people of this community. And we can't thank our community members enough. We can't do what we do without good partnerships with our community, to include the council and all the businesses that help with us. But it's just amazing. We're really humbled to be doing what we're doing and to have the community support behind us that we have. And we're very thankful for that.
We thank you guys for all you do. You know, you know, I notice most of you guys, when you go home after work, you wear your uniform home. You go into a big city, those people don't want to wear their uniform and stop in a grocery store or something like that, because there is not respect. But that goes both ways. I mean, here, I've always been a very believer of respect is earned. And you guys have done a very, very good job of that. Thank you.
Mayor. When we went through our core values, you know, when I first took over as chief, we examined our core values, and I met with every single employee in the police department and got their input. And that was the overwhelming theme is selfless service and community. And, you know, I wouldn't accept anything less than it. I've never met a more accountable group of people than we have at the police department. So I think we're lucky. Thanks.
Chief Toomey, I know that you've commented that you think you have the best police department in the nation, and
we do.
I think to the extent that you are complimenting the community, I think that is reciprocal as well. I don't think that the community is a reflection of the amenities that we provide. That's the fire department, that's the police department, that's the quality of life, and that is really, when we talk about quality of life, a lot of times people don't think about that aspect of it, but really if we don't have that safety, we don't have anything else. Councilman Vilhauer.
I want to zero in on one of the very first slides you showed up there. I don't like to ask a question if I don't know what the answer is going to be, and I don't want to betray any confidences, but I'd like to ask you, Chief Toomey, you and I had a conversation here recently concerning the change in the form of city government. I know there were some reservations, there's reservations at times by police departments when a city manager comes on board. Well, like I said, I know what the answer is going to be, Amanda. So I'd like you to comment on the conversation that we had here a while back about the transition to a city manager.
Yeah, and full transparency, I was nervous. Doing my own research before we were blessed with Mrs. Mack, I was nervous because the relationship with city managers and public safety is not always the best across the country. I was completely wrong. I admit I'm wrong a lot, probably 6% of the time, but this time I was definitely wrong. And we are fortunate to have Amanda at the helm, and it's been nothing but a godsend for us. And I'm not just saying that, I'm not just trying to get my patrol boat or anything, but
Thank you, Chief. See, I knew what the answer was going to be, Amanda.
There's two positions that transitioned. I mean, the mayor too. I mean,
that's right, Mayor. And I want to say how great our mayor has been. You have been.
thank you. Any comments, Councilman Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I just want to, kind of say the same thing that Randy was saying, but, I had the pleasure of walking through that training exercise with you guys, and what a phenomenal experience. I being in the heat of the moment, even in a training exercise, was something that makes your heart really race. Being in the intense situation that you guys go through every day, or the opportunity or the likelihood of that happening, I cannot thank you guys enough, and I know obviously everyone else feels the same way. But these numbers look great. I think you guys are doing a great job as a department, and it speaks volumes to who you're hiring. I think you guys are doing a great job there as well. The community outreach is something like I've never seen before. You guys do a great job, and I think you're seeing that from our younger generations too, where they respect you guys as much as the older generations too. And I just hope that continues, not only here but everywhere else as well.
Thank you, Councilman. And I just, for the community, I encourage you, if you have an issue, bring it to our attention. Our doors are always open. We listen, and together we can do great things. So,
Chief, I got just a comment, and then you can respond. But it seems like when we do have a more prominent drug arrest or issue within the town, there's a lot of chatter amongst the community. You'll see it on Facebook, what the articles get published and such. And for the most part, without question, majority of the people are concerned with that. They want something to occur that, and to not have those things happen. We want a drug-free environment in our community. In looking at the numbers, we hear the national news all the time, and what's the position of our drug scenario in town now? Where are we at?
thanks for the question. Obviously, with the marijuana laws, everything's up in the air, but methamphetamine and fentanyl has not gone away. And, our criminal investigation division is working very hard with our partners like DCI and the Sheriff's Office to combat that. It's not always out in the public, but it's here. I mean, methamphetamines is still a big issue. And so we're going to keep working on that. The trends are going down, so that means people are healthy, and it's a good sign. We approached the council, I believe it was a year or two ago, and asked you to support the cops grant so we get 3 more officers on the street. And I do think that's making a difference. I think the more people we get out interacting and making those positive interactions with the youth and even with the adults, I think it's paying off. So I'm optimistic, I guess.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? On behalf of the entire council and the community of Watertown, we thank you for your service. I said that we were going to play a little bit loose with the schedule, and we're going to start right now by going to item G, which is a Human Service Agency request for a contribution for a new building, furnishings, and staff recruitment. We will start by going to our city manager, Amanda Mack.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll turn this over really quickly to Carrie Johnston with HSA. She approached us a few months ago about their new project. You may have been following their project in the news. They were out in Pierre quite a few times requesting funding. I think they ended up with $1 million when it was all said and done. They are asking us for a contribution of $50,000 towards this project, which matches Cottington County. With that, I'll turn it over to Carrie.
Oh, I will. There we go. My name is Carrie Johnston. I'm the Executive Director of the Human Service Agency. Thank you so much for entertaining this request tonight. I'd like to talk a little bit about the project so everyone is informed. Amanda is not wrong that I have been spending many days out in Pierre as well, advocating for Senate Bill 109, which was Senator Schoenbeck's request for $1 million. It didn't make it through committee because we made an agreement with DSS that they would try to help us cover some funding shortages. They knew that I had the request coming to City Council of Watertown City, as well as have already requested some money from other entities as well, and I'll get to that here in the end. The presentation that I have handed, that Mayor Holine has handed out, just talks a little bit about our current situation. So the reason that we're even doing this is several years ago, we took a look, and by we, I mean South Dakota, took a look at the numbers that were overrunning the Human Services Center down in Yankton, which is our state-funded psychiatric hospital. The second slide on page 1 will show you a little bit of where the numbers are in the Midwest, and you'll see that South Dakota has a lower population, but we seem to have more hospital admits. And at the last column, the length of stay is 11 days, so significantly shorter than a lot of our surrounding neighboring states. The reason that is we simply don't have a lower level of care to help us with acute crises. People get into a crisis of one nature or another, and we don't have anything. Our two options become letting them go home or starting outpatient services, or potentially doing an involuntary commitment to Avera Behavioral Health or the Human Services Center down in Yankton. And so the average length of stay is that 11 days is actually a little longer than what I'm familiar with. Usually it's about anywhere from 3 to 5 days average length of stay. They come back into our community because that crisis is stabilized and they start outpatient services. So we took a look, that second slide, the first slide on page 2, talks a little bit about the Watertown enforcement data that the law enforcement gentlemen were just sharing with you. Statistically, we've had, unfortunately, 12 suicides in the past year. Many other suicide attempts are listed there. That's the law enforcement data. There's other data, other suicide attempts that would come through the Human Service Agency or sometimes through the emergency room as well. So if you look at the next slide on page 2, our current crisis process looks a little bit like the flow chart I have listed there. The crisis comes into us either through the jail calling us, someone calls us on the phone, the emergency room, or law enforcement. From that angle, we get involved and we try to ascertain what's the best route of action. Generally, it's to take to our one safe room, which is currently at our Serenity Hills on Highway 20, where we have 24 hours to decide what we're going to do with that individual. When I tell you 24 hours, that's how state statute is written. So we go to the safe room, and 24 hours is just not long enough. Some people are under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Some people are in an angry state where they're just not willing to talk to us. Some people are mute. Some people have medical issues. So we try to ascertain in that 24 hours what we're going to do with the individual. And our 3 choices, like I said, are discharge with a plan in place to stay at home. Maybe they go to a hospital on their own volition. They have a safe and secure ride down to Avera Behavioral Health, or we do an involuntary commitment to either Avera Behavioral Health or HSC down in Yankton. So it takes a lot of time and is very taxing on the individual. Research will show that the solutions to this problem are more regional care centers, whether it's a regional crisis call center, stabilization facility, or mobile crisis unit. We basically do mobile crisis units in that we work with law enforcement in a lot of different ways. We provide CIT training. We talk with them when they're involved in a crisis. We meet them at the emergency room and the safe room to ascertain the best plan for the individual. But we need that regional crisis stabilization level of care in South Dakota. So from that, the legislators had 2 summer studies in the summer of 2019 to examine what were the best outcomes or what were the best solutions to the problem of overwhelming HSC down in Yankton. From that, in 2020, Senate Bill 4 was passed, authorizing the development of appropriate regional facilities. In 2021, the Department of Social Services sent out RFPs to all the community mental health centers and other entities in the state of South Dakota asking who wants to step up and try to provide this level of care. Lewis and Clark Behavioral Health in Yankton and the Human Service Agency in Watertown were both awarded this RFP at that time. So we started evaluating where we were going to put this, and about that same time, Serenity Hills, which is an entity of the Human Service Agency on Highway 20, landlord came and said they needed to move. They were going to sell that facility, and we needed to relocate. We looked at many different options, and at that time we decided we needed a new facility, because the only way you will get an appropriate regional facility to work is if you have it in the same entity as a place that already provides 24/7 care. And at Serenity Hills, we provide 24/7 care, and we have staffing around the clock. So we decided we would blend all of that together and build our new building right behind our current location on 19th Street. The first slide on page 4 just shows a little bit about what will be different. That's the South Dakota Administrative Rule expectations for an appropriate regional facility. So now we take a person in crisis, and instead of having 24 hours to develop a plan and figure out what we need to do with them, we will have up to 5 days per individual to ascertain the best plan of action for them. Potentially their mental illness is of such they need commitment anyway, which we would do immediately, or potentially we can keep them in that bed for 24 hours, maybe it's 48 hours, maybe it's 72 hours, but it gives us some time to help address the crisis and address the acute level of care that brings them there. Maybe we start a medication, start therapy, or look at all the other resources in our community, and then we will discharge back to their home. If after 5 days we've not been that successful, then we'll look at going to a heavier level of care down at HSC or the hospital in Sioux Falls. That brings us to that future crisis process. A crisis comes into us. It can go directly to the appropriate regional facility, and we will ascertain at that time what we can do with that individual instead of having to, we can hold them up for 5 days, or maybe we go through the emergency room, but it's a one-stop drop is what we're looking at to simplify things for law enforcement and for family members, and for the individuals in the crisis, we want to keep them in their home community too. The appropriate regional facility RFP, when it came out in 2021, it addresses Region 3. If you look on page 5, Region 3 also includes Aberdeen, Huron, and Brookings. I have not addressed this with their cities just yet, or their counties as of yet. I wanted to get our building up and running and operational before I plan to address those communities as well, to see what they're willing to donate to our cause as well. I also know the building that we're building has 4 appropriate regional facility beds, and there's a lot of people have asked me, are you sure that's enough? And my answer to that is we can always go a little bit bigger if we need to. I can't go smaller if we start out too big. I also anticipate that Huron and or Pierre, Mitchell, those areas will also be developing and building appropriate regional facilities in time. They just do not have that 24/7 operation that Lewis and Clark down in Yankton has, and that the Human Service Agency has as well. So. And then finally, that last slide, just as a picture of our future. That walking track off to the right there, that's behind HSA. So this will all be behind HSA, and all of our services will be on one campus, which will also help with staffing, and it will provide counselors to be able to walk back and forth, or clients to be able to walk back and forth from their not those that are in our safe room, but some of those in our halfway house, walking back and forth from their appointments too, to save on our transportation as well. So with that, I respectfully ask, I'm very respectful of the city budget, as I said to the county commissioners when I presented with them as well. I am very respectful of your budget, and we're requesting whatever you could give us. We're looking for about $50,000 to offset the rising cost of building. As you all know, now is not the greatest time to be doing something like this, but we've anticipated, everyone has told us, look for a 20% markup in the cost of your building supplies and shipping, and so we're very mindful of that as well. And with that, I will stand by with any questions.
Thank you very much. With that, we will return to our city manager, Mac, for a recommendation.
Thank you, Mayor. It's staff's recommendation to award HSA in the amount of $50,000, and we would recommend that as the motion to approve.
The chair will entertain a motion from council to make a contribution to Human Service Agency of Watertown, South Dakota in the amount of $50,000.
So moved.
Made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Paulson. We'll now open it up for questions or comments from the council. Councilman Danforth.
If I may pose this question to Kristen. That's okay, or Amanda and Kristen, whatever. We're into our budget year, and we have not budgeted for this, so where would these funds come from? And would that adversely affect any other portion of our budget?
Finance Officer Bob Zine.
Thank you. This would actually come from unrestricted fund balance in the general fund. What we've been doing is, if this comes up, we'll supplement the budget later in the year. $50,000 out of the general fund, no. I don't see that causing any issues within the general fund.
Satisfactory, Councilman? Councilman Tupper.
My question more to Gary. You said there was only going to be four safe rooms?
Correct.
Originally, wasn't there 5 or?
There's always been a design to have 4 appropriation facility beds and then also 4 detox beds.
Okay, maybe that's where I'm getting it wrong. It just watching the old facility. I mean, I've had the opportunity to take a tour of the old facility many a times through the United Way. We've taken people out there to, and not only that, but a ride along with the police department one night when they were able to use the safe room. Outstanding facility. I mean, I mean, we've seen the desire to add a human service, or not human services, mental health officer to the police department. That tells you where we're at. You know, I mean, it's a tragic that we see those numbers increasing all the time. That's why I feel this organization is very, very important. I think it's going to be great for the whole community, not only the community but the surrounding areas. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Councilman Vilhauer.
A couple questions. I guess probably primarily towards you, Carrie. Probably a follow-up to what Councilman Danforth just asked. Are those dollars needed now versus, let's say, 2023 in a new budget year? What's your timetable on this, Carrie?
We've already broken ground, and we anticipate the DSS money will be coming in here in the next several months.
Okay.
We're hoping to have the building done and moving in by October.
Okay. So those dollars are needed really as soon as possible.
That would be great.
Okay. And I'm also looking at we have our county commissioner chair back there. The county has also committed $50,000. Is that correct?
They have.
Okay.
Yeah.
When there's a transport to Yankton, who does that transporting?
Our sheriff, the sheriff of the county, responsible for wherever the person resides. That county sheriff does the transportation.
Okay. Well, just, on the tails of the PD report, I mean, and the mental health issues that we are facing in this community, I am strongly in support of this.
Thank you.
As one member of the council up here.
Thank you.
Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Unfortunately, I do have a family member that has needed some of these services, not necessarily in Watertown, but I have witnessed how, I don't want to use the wrong word here, we don't have enough facilities in the state, and unfortunately, they don't get the help that they need. And I'm glad to see something like this coming through where they're trying to take a proactive approach to this, because it really does take a drain, not only on the individual not getting the help they need, but the family members and the friends that are all surrounding them. Another thing too is I've had friends and family that work at Serenity Hills, and they say the same thing. They can't get the help they need, which ultimately just creates stress for the staff. And I'm sure you're having staffing issues because they can't get the help that they need. And so I'm very much in favor of this, and I think it's much needed in this area.
Thank you.
Councilman Shetty.
Thank you, Mayor. For Ms. Johnston, just want to thank you for your work and leadership, and your whole staff as well, because obviously sadly it is something we need to address, but I'm glad we have leadership and resources to do it, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm a big proponent of what you do. So.
Well, thank all of you. We really appreciate it. We do have some crisis going on in our community, but I also think part of the increased numbers that we're seeing is also because we're pushing awareness and prevention and those kinds of things too. So people are not quite as shy to reach out for help when they need it. So thank you very much for your support. We appreciate it.
Seeing no further comments, the motion is to make a contribution to the Human Service Agency in the amount of $50,000. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
We will now move to item I, the 2021 Watertown Fire Rescue Annual Report. I think we have our Chief Don Rowland and Assistant Chief Scott Youngblood.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council and city manager. We're here tonight again to present our 2021 year-end report for our fire department. First and foremost, I want to thank.
I was born to be.
Took your thunder.
Hey, we got the dance going on.
We're just better.
We're all the same. How's that? Yes. Public safety is awesome. I just want to share with you guys how important your role is as council members for public safety. I do well as the fire chief because I have great people. I also do well because I have a good council and city manager and mayor in this community, and the people of this community supports public safety at the highest level. And that stated, it makes us all look better as a team. And that's what we are. We're a team when it comes to public safety. So I can't tell you how grateful I am and honored to be the fire chief of Watertown Fire Rescue. We had a lot of wonderful change last year, not only in the city form of government with our new city manager, Mac, but also a new fire chief, a new police chief. We had a lot of department heads that changed as well. And with that, change is sometimes good. And at our department, we had a lot of change when it comes to our staff as well. And we had a new Assistant Chief Youngblood here, took over my position. We had a new battalion chief that was promoted. We had two new lieutenants. We had a new fire marshal position, and we also created a new position called the Certified Ambulance Compliance Officer position, our CACO position, and Gary Langerock took over that position for us. So I can tell you that a lot of great changes and a lot of wonderful people that are in this position. So with that, no further ado, I'll let Scott share our video that he already did anyways.
So as the warm-up I played for you, I'd like to show you the video that one of our firefighters put together for us.
Andrew Seaback is our firefighter paramedic that put this together for us.
We went somewhere. We'll just start it this way.
I was born to be making history, something greater, something higher. Ain't nothing gonna stop this fire. It's plain reality. I was born to be something greater, something higher. Ain't nothing gonna stop this fire. I was born to be making history, something greater, something higher. Ain't nothing gonna stop this fire.
Okay, with that, I think we'll start on our year-end presentation. Scott's going to pull up our PowerPoint presentation, if it lets us. I know Chief Toomey said 10 minutes for his presentation. I'll try to keep it at 10 minutes or less. What do you think, Chief? Okay. First and foremost, we'll go into the next slide, Scott, or a couple more here. A couple things we'll go over tonight is we'll go over ambulance emergency services, as well as fire services, our aircraft rescue services, our fire prevention services, our South Dakota all hazard services, as well as some of our 21 highlights. Now, who do we serve in the community? Well, we serve the greater part of Cottington County in general. When it comes to our fire response, we respond to 9 townships, or around 327 square miles in the community. We also respond to pretty much the greater part of Cottington County, 785 square miles for all our townships. The only 2 townships we don't serve in a lead role is Leola, as well as Waverly in that upper right-hand corner up there. And those 2 are served by South Shore Ambulance, but we do serve that community on a great basis when it comes to first response during the daytime hours, because they unfortunately at volunteer service aren't able to make it. But that stated, our dispatch folks do a great job of putting us out there to help in that mutual aid aspect as well. So when it comes to calls for service, just in general, last year, a combination of our calls for service, as you can see up, is our ambulance calls that we go on, as well as our fire calls, our fire prevention calls for service, and aircraft rescue calls for service. Now, these are just the big portion of the 4 that we go to. As you can see, ambulance represents about 58% of all the calls that we go on, our EMS calls. Our fire calls are around 16%, fire prevention are 10%, and then the aircraft rescue are around that 16%. As you can see, we had about a 10% increase in calls from one calendar year to the next. So that had mostly because of the aircraft rescue. We have to have a staff member out there an hour, half hour before, half hour after, and we've been doing that on a regular basis here in the last year. With the United not being a part of our service, those numbers might drop a little bit for us. Next. Scott's going to share with the rest here.
So we'll expand on where those percentages broke down and what those numbers actually meant. So a couple things we're really proud of. Excuse my voice, I seem to be lost it today. So, but 100% of our full-time staff are paramedics. I was just recently in a week-long class at National Fire Academy with 16 other full-time fire and EMS departments, and none of those departments could make that statistic known. So it's not well known or well done for the for the all full-time staffs to be paramedics. So that's something that we're pretty proud of. It's something we strive to maintain, and it also shows our dedication to the service we want to bring to the citizens of Watertown. Of those, we operate out of 5 life-saving ambulances that run that coverage area that Chief was talking about. And in 2021, of our 2,956 calls, compared to the 2,873 in 2020, it showed a 3% increase in our calls. We were wondering where our annual was going to end up after that COVID year, because we did maintain a lot of COVID calls in 2020, and as you can tell, that the calls for service is still increasing as with the COVID to carry on, and with other calls as needed. Those calls broke down. Station 1 is our downtown station here. Their calls for service is 2444 versus 2368. Station 2 is the 512 of those calls. And then actually our calls in the county increased about 100 calls. So what kind of calls are we responding to? Well, 41% of them are general medical calls. Woke up, not feeling well. 10% is that respiratory, cardiac strokes 13. Trauma, those are your car accidents or fell out of the tree or something has caused an injury. And then as we've been mentioned to several times today, we have 8% of behavioral, so that would be our mental health calls as well that we have to answer to.
just want a quick touch on ambulance calls for service. I did a little number crunching today. I'm a data geek a little bit. And we did 58 cardiac arrest calls last year, which is pretty significant in our area. And of those 58 cardiac arrest calls, 20 people were dead when we got there, unfortunately. But the other 38 that we had that we got on scene, somebody had already started CPR or used a defibrillator, or maybe a police officer got there before us and started CPR or used the AED as well. Of those 38, 21 of those people got to the hospital with a pulse and were breathing. Now you're probably thinking, well, that's not a huge number. Well, it is actually. The national average is 36% across the board when it comes to out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. We were over 50%, and we've had that number happen to us in the community the last 2 years. So I'm really proud of that. Not so much my staff. They do a great job, don't get me wrong. But it's the community involvement, the education for people in our community to understand that if we start out CPR out of hospital within that 10-minute window, they have a great chance of survivability. And Councilman Tupper and I have shared that with each other over the years. So it's a great thing that in our education standpoint.
So types of fire calls that went into that call service, we had 778 fire calls, 47% of those for the rescue and EMS. We help support our ambulance service with the fire calls. The 14% of just good intent calls that somebody needed some assistance, we were able to help, or business. We had actually 14% fire calls and 16% false alarms. And then 9% on hazardous no conditions. Chief Rowland talked about how the AEDs and stuff have helped with that. We also, 9% of that, we for our survivability for fires that we've had were because of our smoke alarm program. So that's some of our calls that hazardous conditions, just doing smoke alarm installs. 87% of our structure fires in Watertown were contained to a room and content. So that means that the room that fire started in, we were able to contain it to 87% of the time. We trained a combined hours of 5,500 hours in 2021, and that was a lot of what that video you saw there showed is a lot of our training events that we do throughout our department, because that's the bulk of ours. We train for the worst days so that we're always ready. And then that 778 calls showed a 1% increase over 2020. So of those 778 then, 592 were in the city and 186 were in the county. Over the last 5 years, we've showed a 19% increase in our ambulance calls and 41% in our fire calls. We, like Chief mentioned earlier, we are responsible for the airport firefighting. Our staff are trained to FAA standards, so we have mandated training that we have to maintain to that, and part of that training is that we have to do this live burn. In 2021, we had that 974 calls for service compared to 798, and a lot of that could be there because contributed to the extra air service that we actually ran in 2021, which then makes a harder number for us to achieve in 2022. But our airport's doing well, and with the increased flights, we'll do okay. So part of that training then is they have to do that 900 hours. The staff contributed to ARF training, so just to airport firefighter training for the year. Fire prevention, we have a new fire marshal in there, Adam Bloom, and he has new direction and new stuff he's going on. He's really active. He has a good support staff where he's pushing smoke detectors really heavily, picking up where Chip had left off. We've reinvigorated that, put some more people to that because the smoke alarm is our first defense for saving lives, and we're proud of that. Our fire inspections are up from 2020, and actually is a 5% increase. So now we're also part of South Dakota Task Force 1. The South Dakota Task Force 1 is made up of our fire department, Sioux Falls Fire Department, Aberdeen, and Rapid City. If there's a major event, either having to do with rescue or a big hazmat concern or a situation, one of these 4 cities can be requested by those local emergency managers in those areas, and we'll send some staff, and they'll send some staff depending on where it's at so that we can work together to complete that. So that team is about 50 members strong. We do train together. If you saw in the video, you saw that there was actually some SDTF T-shirts, and the guys were out in the Black Hills last fall doing training with Rapid City and Sioux Falls and Aberdeen and doing some of that high-angle rescue. And then we actually hosted a hazardous materials class called a HAZCAT class in our engine bay here in Watertown, where we had staff from those departments. So we do try to work together and train together so that we have those familiar faces and can coordinate together when we get on scene. So we part of that being part of that team then helps come with some grants that help fund some of the training. We were also able to get a Department of Homeland grant for supportable radios at $25,000, Homeland Security grant for some USAR equipment for doing those rescues that we need to be at high angle or confined space, as it may be. And then the RIT pack, that's the packs that when we, during the Ventex car show that was downtown, Mavericks actually spearheaded a fundraising event to help us get our RIT packs. So we have a lot of equipment that can help others when we needed to, but we also need equipment to help us, and those RIT packs help save us when we're in trouble. So if we have an instance that's a firefighters went down inside of a structure or something for whatever reason it may be, we have an emergency kit that we can go in there and help make rapid extrication for those. So, and that's what RIT stands for, is Rapid Intervention Team. So we're proud to be part of this community. We're also proud to have the community support, and we're always welcome to give back and be part of that and look for chances to serve as well. And we tried to represent that when we participated in the stair climb. This past year was 9/11 was the 10-year anniversaries for that. So we have that. The training that we permitted, the camp chances that we participate in, and then service our community through the processes of our business.
Okay, just quickly here, a little bit of our vision moving forward here. Our strategic plan that we put together from our SWOT analysis back in 2019, we identified this plan from our strategic goals, and I've shared these with Manager Mack as far as what we're looking at here. But as you can see, we're still striving to meet an FPA 1710, and that's really the staffing model. That's the deployment analysis as well as the staffing response as well, and that's still something that we're improving on. The ability to provide the services of our department as far as many things from EMS to fire, but that also comes with that improved response time that we would get out at the East Fire Station. We also have the quantity and quality of applicants that we work on a routine basis. Lake Erie Tech College has been a great asset and tool for us in the community. We couldn't ask for better folks that are coming from that program. All I can tell you is we'd be in tough shape when it comes to recruiting folks if we didn't have that in our backyard. How do I know that? I've got colleagues throughout the state that are struggling to find people, so we're really fortunate in that regards. Our training is really important, how we continue to expand. Not only do we do it internally, but we do it externally outside of the city. And Scott's right, with being on the South Dakota Task Force requires us to be a part of many different programs. And the bottom line is they help us with the funding to get that done. We do train outside the state on a regular basis. Also, our firefighter safety, that personnel accountability reporting, we have programs in place on scene for those types of incidences. Our equipment is ongoing changing. The technology is extremely important. We have the state-of-the-art technology when it comes to firefighting. It helps protect our staff, but it also helps us find people if we need to, if we're in a real tough situation. And our personal protective equipment, the structured firefighting gear, ever changing as well. Obviously, if you look at number 6, that's improving our cancer awareness and our prevention. And believe me, we change those out every 7 years. The help with my finance director, Bob Zine over there, we've talked about this and putting us in our CIP and helped you guys as well. We put that money in every year to change that out to keep our guys safe. And the last one, obviously, is we want to continue to maintain our current ISO rating, and I think a lot of you guys are aware we're an ISO 2 at this point, and that audit is going to be coming up here in the near future in 2023. So that's based on our water supply, our fire department functions, as well as our communications, and I'll be working with Communications Manager Van Duzen on our communications part of that ISO audit. This is kind of what the Station 3 concept would look like. I think we shared that before. It's a 3-bay, 10,000 square foot facility. The business plan that we have in place going forward, if you can go to the next slide, is all these bullets up here. Currently, we're working on a site plan. We're getting closer. We've been working with our colleagues here at the city to maybe get that done here this year, get it to you guys to take a look at. We want to know what the capabilities are of that facility. Is it fire response? Is it EMS response? Is it a multiple of different facets there? Our design flow, obviously that's the construction side of it. We get into the operation costs, and that's the big one for you guys, the staffing model with it. And obviously what kind of community benefits we have from it. Well, we know the benefits are strong from response times, as well as the fact that our numbers continue to grow. The next slide will show that one more time. Oh, I'm sorry, this slide here is the NFPA 1710 deployment model that we use. We want to get to any fire scene within 4 minutes or less within 90% percentile. And that means one engine company with 4 people on it in 4 minutes or less. We meet about 78% of those. And our ISO audit really depends upon meeting those affected timelines. Here is the future East Fire Station call volume from last year. As you can see here, Station 1 would have been right at 1572, 53% of all the calls. Station 2, the new station, Station 2 out at Golf Course Road is 529. And the new Station 3 projected one, the bottom one there, is 855 calls, or 28% plus of our call volume. So as you can see, it would definitely take those calls and move them out a little bit and make them a little more better. The circles that you see up there are 1 mile, the inner circle, and then 2 miles in the outer circle. And it will basically highlight the whole city of Watertown for the most part and keep us in that 2 to 4 minute response time. So with that, I would entertain any questions or comments from council.
Councilman Vilhauer.
I think we take our first of all, thank you for your report. I think we all take our fire protection for granted here in Watertown. I did not realize until just recently, not all Class A communities have a full-time fire department or a paid fire department. Do you want to expound on that a little bit, Chief?
Well, that's really a tough question to share, because the ISO is based on like 60, 70,000 fire departments across the nation, and there's Class 1 through Class 10. Most of your volunteer fire departments are in that Class 4 and below. There is a few that do meet that Class 2 and 3, not many. Specifically speaking, in South Dakota, the 4 cities that I'm aware of, Rapid City is a Class 2, Aberdeen's a Class 2, Rapid City, Aberdeen, Watertown are all Class 2, and the only other Class 1 in the state is Sioux Falls. Okay. Brookings is a Class 3, I believe.
And Brookings is partially volunteer
yes.
staff, right?
Yes.
So I mean that's
yep.
the point of making that
yep.
that we are so blessed here in Watertown for the service that we do have. Now I got a comment on the ambulance side. Mayor Holing, you and I were along with the previous council got involved in dialogue here within the last year or two concerning ambulance revenue versus cost. And just looking at page 6 of your report, if I'm reading these numbers right, revenue was about $1,171,000 from the yep. ambulance side. Costs were about $2.9 million.
Yes.
So for anyone out there that thinks that our ambulance service is a huge generator for the community, that could not be further from the truth.
We are definitely, we need the funds from our community and sales tax. Yep.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Tupper.
Well, I've been at it all night, giving a lot of attaboys, so we might as well continue. But, I've had the privilege of getting to know you guys very well, sitting on when I was on the council before and sitting on the fire advisory committee. Those ratings don't come easy. You guys put in a lot of hard work and dedication, and thank God council people in the city in the past were able to give you guys such a great training facility out there at the airport. I mean, that has saved you a ton of money in training, and also probably brings in a little bit with out of town. But there again, it just goes back to the same thing like the police department. Like I said, it's more of a community service agency as it is a fire department because of things that you guys get out and do in the community. Just great work, and I can't thank you guys enough, so thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Paulson.
Thank you. Same thing. I applauded the police department. Same goes for you guys. You guys are doing a great job. Your numbers are improving. It's great to see. And again, you guys are hiring great people, and that's very evident with the two of you sitting right in front of us tonight. So I appreciate all your guys' hard work, and keep up the great.
Any further comments or questions?
Just those two departments between the police department and the fire department are kind of a different breed of cat. You know, a cop runs toward a gunshot and the fireman runs toward the fire, so.
Chair would like to ask, who won the blood drive this year?
Of course, the police department did.
Why of course, Chief?
Well, Chief Toomey did a lot of marketing, I would say. And I did feel sorry for him a little bit, and I did advocate for him on the air a couple times. So I said, you know, you can vote for the police department. They don't win a lot, so. No, honestly, all kidding aside, we have a great rapport with each other, and we can't do it without each other. And on incident scenes, when we get on scene, I tell you what, the professionalism of that staff, either being police or fire, is amazing. So it's awesome.
I think that's a good.
Mayor Holdeen, I think the answer to your question is the community and the citizens won the blood drive.
You should be up here as a politician.
I think he's learning from you, Mayor.
Actually, I have seen, and I want to commend, I know that there's some good-natured ribbing between the two departments, but when there is something, when both departments are on scene, the professionalism and the focus upon the task at hand is amazing, and the entire community really benefits from that. I said it with the police department. The biggest quality of life issue that we have here in Watertown is public safety, and we couldn't do it without the two departments. So I don't think that we can say thanks enough on behalf of our community. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Now we will go to the 2021 Watertown Regional Library Annual Report. We'll go to our city librarian, Dee Dee Whitman.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I just have to pull up my presentation here. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get started, or should I wait for a moment?
No, you're fine.
Okay, excellent. So, good afternoon, evening, whatever it is at this time of day. Thank you for having me and letting me present a little bit about the library. I was told I had 6 minutes, right, Kristen? 6 minutes. I will be brief, but please let me know if you have any questions. So we'll just kind of dive right in here. Oops. With a reminder of what our mission and goals are at the library. So our mission is connecting people to the joy of reading, information, and lifelong learning. And we do that through our 5 goals of our current strategic plan, which we will be working on the next phase this year. But that is to provide a safe and secure place for the public, to provide access to technology, to provide a wide variety of programs for all ages, to provide a well-developed collection, and to develop knowledgeable staff who are engaged in our community. And I can honestly say that we have fantastic staff at the library. We love our community, and we love serving the people of Watertown. But this past year, 2021, has been a year of challenges, but also a year of growth. We added a number of new programs. One of our most popular has been our teen and adult book box subscription. So you don't have to raise your hand. If you haven't signed up, you still can. You can do that at the library. You get a book every month that's picked by one of our librarians, and you get a couple of trinkets and treats to enjoy along with it. We also had Other really popular programs that developed out of our library's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and that is exemplified in that adorable little bunny craft kit. We had about 4,000 whether they be craft kits or STEM kits or other activity kits that were picked up by patrons at our library. We also participated in a number of community events. That's one of our goals, as I mentioned, is to be engaged in the community. And in that bottom left-hand corner, we have Paul and Lance, who worked so hard on our float for the lighted parade, which is, as you all know, is put on by the Optimists. They also give out grants to the community with some of the fundraising from that event, and we were fortunate enough to earn a $1,000 grant that we utilized in our children's area for manipulatives. It's a really fun foam construction set that you can go build things with, so the kids are really loving that. We also have some expanded collections. One of our primary library vendors, Overdrive, they make the Libby app. They acquired other apps that we were also using, and so I'm not going to be any more boring about that, but that did change a little bit about what's available. So in addition to ebooks and audio books, there's also magazines that are available in that app, and we just added a number of music courses right in that app. We got a new mandolin for our Library of Things, so I went to go and look at the video and found out I'm terrible at the mandolin. So, but y'all can find that out for yourself. Definitely check it out in the app. And there is a glaring hole in my presentation, unfortunately. We did get some great coverage by KELOLAND about our Library of Things back in May, so I was going to have a little clip about that. So I'm going to just invite you all to Google Library of Things KELOLAND, and you'll see yours truly on that video. So I'm super famous now. And then the last picture right in the middle, that was the kickoff program for our Tales and Trails bike lending program that we started last year through the Watertown Area Community Foundation's Giving Back 365 grant program, as well as grants with Xcel Energy. And so it was about $10,000 that we received to start this program. We have 11 bikes for kids, adults. We even have a bike carrier. We have a couple of tandem bikes, and we're still waiting for some to come in, unfortunately, because of some supply chain issues. But we did have that fun kickoff at City Park last year. And we will be having the bikes out soon. Just, it's a little bit too cold yet. So we'll kind of dive into some of the data. In the packet is 13 pages of data, so we're going to try to cover most of it relatively quickly. But like I said, if you have questions, let me know. The income for 2021 was $1,052,935, and we were awarded over $80,000 in grants and donations. The big one was the $60,000 grant for our RFID project, which is coming along swimmingly. And then I mentioned the bike program, the Optimist Club grants. Our Friends of the Library group is amazing. They donated $8,000 to the library last year, and we had some improvements to our children's area, our teen area, and we're hoping that one of our projects going forward is kind of revitalizing our adults, the area for adults as well. So lots of things coming up. But in terms of our expenditures, 68.3% of that is our staff. Our staff is incredibly valuable. They make everything we do possible. Other than staff, our other operating costs are about 19.5% of our expenditures, and our collections are 12.2%. The next area of the report deals with our holdings. So for books, we're pretty steady. Ebooks, we see a bump in our SDTTG. That is South Dakota Titles to Go. That is a consortium of a number of libraries around the state, and I serve on the selection committee for that right now. So they had a bump in spending relating to ARPA grants, ARPA funding, which was wonderful because then we just can provide more for the communities around the state. We didn't have a lot of changes here, but there was one significant one. I mentioned the different changes happening in the vendors, one vendor acquiring another, et cetera, and one of their resources they completely transformed and was no longer available. And so that's where we see kind of a dip on that downloadable audio for 2021. But everything else is roughly the same. Digital video is still very small. This is an area where there just has not been a lot of lending models that we really think are valuable, that we can afford and offer to our patrons. But there may be some movement happening on the consortia level, and I will keep you all informed about that. Our electronic collections, we have, I think, 12, and that really means databases, just so you know. South Dakota State Library added a few, and so I think they've got about 63, something like that. So between the two, we've got about 75 resources. This next little bit of data I kind of crammed together. They don't necessarily have much to do with each other, but they look pretty, don't they? This is a point where we can look at the data and just be thankful that it's no longer 2020. I don't know how to say that any other way. Our attendance is close to 75,000 in 2021, not where it was in 2019, but we are on our way. And a lot of the data shows that. So that we're not quite back to where we were in 2019, but we're definitely improving. Our holdings are pretty steady, though. Other service indicators that are always included in a report are how many hours we're open. We're open 63 hours a week. We're open 7 days a week. We're only closed about 12 days a year. So I would be one of the first people to advocate closure on Sundays. We are very busy on Sundays, so if you want to drop in sometime on a Sunday, you'll see lots of folks using the lab and getting things for their families. We have 9,190 registered library card holders. We answered 3,595 reference questions, and we had about 742 meetings use our meeting rooms. And while we were trying to assemble today and I was trying to get my presentation pulled up, none of my passwords were working. I couldn't get anything going on. And so that's just a little snippet of what a reference question is like these days. You might spend 15 minutes on one question trying to find a solution. So, but I should at this point say thank you, Pete, and thank you, Mitch, for helping me get things going today. So the next few slides are all about our circulation. So if we're looking at our physical materials, we've had improvements in books, we had improvements in non-print, that's CDs, DVDs, etc. And then improvement in our total circulation. So again, as I mentioned before, we're thankful it's no longer 2020. We are looking forward to what's going on in 2022 and happy that we had some improvement in 2021. For our electronic materials, it was just kind of interesting to see how things were going to change after we opened our doors. We were closed for about 10 weeks, something like that. I could be wrong on that. But so for 6 months in 2020, we had we were open to the public, but we didn't have our full services. In 2021, we were open to the public and we had our full services most of the year. The first half of 2021, we did not have in-person programs for kids. And so as we go forward, we'll see that data, but that definitely affects the circulation. It's one of the things that we do the most. Come into our story time, check out our book clubs, but take home some materials with you, right? Come and see all the great things we have at the library. So that was, again, improvements in our circulation, but still not quite 12 months of full programming. So we'll have some great things to look forward to in 2022. In terms of our databases, I mentioned how many that we have versus what the state library has. And the state library actually changed how citizens of South Dakota access their databases. So now if you are using your phone, laptop, tablet, whatever, it'll geolocate. As long as you are inside South Dakota, you can use those resources. So you no longer have to use a library card to sign in, which is great. It's a lot easier for patrons. We love that. It does take away some of our Watertown specific data. So it looks like we have about 4,000 fewer uses of those resources, but that's not necessarily the case. It's really comparing apples and oranges now because of this change. The great news is the usage of a Watertown purchased databases is way up, more so than I have ever seen in any library I've worked at for any database. The big driver of that change was the image edition of the Public Opinion, which is on the front page of our website, so check it out. In 2021, there were 26,288 uses of that resource. So that's pretty incredible. And it's of the resource that we get that through Newsbank, that's the vast majority of usage too. We have about another 1,200 uses of that past the Public Opinion. So I'm extremely happy with that, and I'm glad that we are supporting our local paper who has our local news. So we're returning to programming that I just mentioned earlier. Every year there's also a little change in what data they'd like us to present. And so in terms of the programming, they asked for it to be split up between on-site programs and off-site programs. We do a great deal of outreach. So we can see that while the majority of our programming is on-site, for the number of programs and the number of attendees, we still have a good number of off-site programs as well. We also have passive programs like the craft I mentioned earlier, and like I said, I think it was around 4,000 people who utilize those. But comparing the last few years, we're having more total programs, and we've had the most program attendance of any year that I'm aware of at the library. And that is directly linked to our children's programming staff. So I'd like to give kudos out to Sarah and to Deb and to Kelsey, who were complete rock stars last year. Of the 22,800 some program attendees, 18,000 of those are children. So what the children's staff does is important, and they do an amazing job. So thank you, thank you. That's just a breakdown to see which ages are being served. We had a big leap for all of the kids, but even more so for the elementary age kids. And they can be a little bit harder to reach, especially during the school year. So that's one of the things that our crew has been doing, is additional outreach to schools, after-school programs, preschools, etc. We also have had some improvement in our teen and adult attendance. I mentioned that fantastic subscription box program. That's one of their most popular events. In terms of the technology we offer, we had a slight dip in our internet sessions and wireless sessions and our website visitors, but I think that we're still number one, aren't we, Pete? Woo, the library's number one out of the city website. So thank you, everyone, for patronizing the library online, too. For interlibrary alone, we are making some gains on 2020, but we haven't gotten back to 2019. And 2019, for the, 3 or 4 years previous to that, it's been pretty steady. So I'm expecting that to come back up, too. The last few slides are about our special services, our child care delivery service, and our brand new delivery service to Great Plains Lutheran High School. So for special services, we have, we're seeing similar things. We've got improvement over 2021, not quite back to 2019, but still circulating a lot of material. So I also am excited to see what will come out of working with the Senior Center in their new space. So we're looking forward to that. Our child care delivery service, the book circulations are again, not quite up to 2019, but pretty happy with almost 3,500 books being delivered to child care centers and in-home child cares. And then we just started it in November, so it's very young, but Great Plains Lutheran High School, they don't have a library on their campus. They direct their students to us, and we're happy to help them in a number of ways relating to school or recreational. But we wanted to try to reach out to them because of that, and so we've got this new service in place, and so we've got 5 patrons there. We've taken them a few books. So we're going to keep on growing that one as well. So all sorts of things coming soon. So March 31st, Lee Gable is going to be presenting about the situation in Russia and Ukraine. On April 2nd, I'd like to invite everyone out, whether you're a runner or a walker or a couch potato, or maybe you're a couch potato who's going to pretend that they can run a little bit. April 2nd, come on out. It's registration's at 9. The race starts at 10. It's our library 5K fundraiser. Thank you, Dash. Thank you, Chief. And thanks to Michelle, who's been helping coordinate that. So I won't make you raise your hand again. But come on out and support the library. We also have our summer reading program every summer, and this summer we're going to have an overdue special event. Our traveling exhibit, Americans and the Holocaust, will be coming July 18th through August 29th. Maria has been working incredibly hard for more than 2 years now. It was initially supposed to come in the summer of 2020. So she's getting all of her speakers and all of her speakers and programs ready for that. And then the exhibit will be here in the large, what direction is that? North corridor of the library. Other things coming up, we've got a turkey call program. I heard something about turkeys making a mess around town. You can come and learn how to make a turkey call and then go hunting for them. We are currently planting a number of different plants hydroponically at the library. We're going to be giving some of those away in May. We've got tomatoes, we've got watermelons, we've got peas, we've got all sorts of things. We also have, we also have the strategic planning coming up, and we'll be doing some more community surveys relating to that. So I'm sure there's something I left out, but if you have questions, please let me know. And other than that, I just need to say thank you to a number of people, including our incredible staff, our board, all of you on the council. Mayor and manager are both fantastic library patrons. We love your support, so thank you. Thank you to the community, and to other departments too. Because it's amazing how many things I mess up in the finance office or IT or all the times Parks and Rec. We've been working on things lately as well. So we got a good crew, so thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? Councilman Schutte.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, thank you, Ms. Whitman. I'm fortunate to be on the library board, and so it's been good to see and learn all the programs, and I was not aware of all the programs that were there, and even the challenges in 2020 and 2021 that you guys have had to do to adjust your sales to keep the library moving forward, even though you were closed for a while, and working through all that. It's hats off to you and your staff, because I know it's obvious you have a passion for this, and that's what it takes to have a good library in town. And so I just wanted to, thank you for what you're doing there.
Thank you too.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Councilman Schutte.
Yeah, one more quick thing. So this RFID program.
How did I not talk about that?
You mentioned it just for like 2 seconds. And, that's, they're tagging every single item in the library, your staff and some volunteers. And just how many items do you think roughly there is you're tagging? It's
about 130,000. And we're probably around 40,000 right now. And we discussed at the library board meeting that we may have to have some additional closures to the public to complete that project on the timeline that is necessary for the ARPA guidelines. And so what we are going to do is potentially close like a Thursday and Friday morning. Those are very slow mornings for us. That way we can really focus on getting those things done. But there are so many possibilities with RFID. This year when we, well, not this year, but when we consider how is the library going to grow, how are we going to reach more people, one of the best ways to do that, in my opinion, is through library vending machines around the community. And in order to have one of those machines, you have to have your collection tagged with RFID. It helps with the management of the items, not just in the vending machine, but throughout the whole system. So that is where I'm hoping we can move to expand our outreach and our footprint, really. One of the issues that was brought up in our strategic plan is our location, and because our city keeps growing. And that's wonderful. But there are lots of neighborhoods that are nowhere near the library. And so we can strategically place these vending machines and increase access exponentially. So we get there. We'll just got to finish the RFID first.
Thank you very much. As you know, I love the library. I've got a $1 fine waiting for me the next time I show up.
Oh, we might be able to waive it.
You really should not say that at a public meeting.
Well, we could waive the $1 fine with a $2 payment.
But I do want to say also that while I think there is no replacement for a physical copy of a book, your electronic database is astounding. A lot of e-books, e-audiobooks, and I would highly encourage our citizens to use your facilities, use what you have to offer, rather than just automatically going to one of the large companies. So,
absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dee Dee.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yes. We will now move to item S, an authorization for the city manager to sign a contract with Darktrace for an AI security platform solution. For this, we will go to our AI director, Peter Boyle. Thank you for waiting.
IT director, even. Hi, everyone. Hi, council. This is my first time being up here, so this is cool. So, so what is Darktrace? Darktrace, I have on with me Drew Stodeker and Michael Bush there. They've been helping me out learn about what Darktrace is. Darktrace is an AI security solution. What it does is, well, I'll just say this. Cybersecurity has always just been largely reactive. There will be some sort of threat or exploit out there for our one of our systems, and we go in and we patch it to prevent people from coming in. But what Darktrace does, Darktrace learns what's normal on our network. It kind of learns what happens on the day-to-day, just kind of the flows of people, how people do work. And it sees, if Darktrace sees an anomaly, something that's outside, say there's some computer that's exfiltrating a bunch of data, it's out of the normal, Darktrace will stop it before, it just stops it right in its track, and it helps us visualize everything that we can, that's going on our network, and helps us find threats. And not only that, their software will also stop it before it causes more harm, such as like a ransomware attack. Most ransomware attacks, you find out about them after all of your data has been encrypted. Darktrace can go in and see that and say, hey, why is this being encrypted? And it'll stop it. It's a really neat platform. So for the past 30 days, we've been doing a proof of value trial with them. And we've been running their platform on our network, and we've been able to see what goes on, just getting a really good visual of what happens on our network day to day, threats that happen. Let's see. I've kind of gone over that. So anyway, IT has needed a security person. We've asked for a security person in the past, and the money just hasn't been there. Darktrace kind of fills that position, actually, but with an AI person, not an actual human person. And it's far less expensive than the cost of a new employee. And the cool thing that I think is Darktrace never sleeps. Darktrace is always watching and always looking for threats on our network. Now, granted, we still do all of our patching and we keep everything up to date. But this is just, I think it's a necessity for the city. Ransomware attacks are going up. Cybersecurity threats are not going away. So this is something that I feel that I would like the city to have, just for the protection of all of our cyber or security or IT assets and everything that goes on our network. So that's my little spiel. Did you catch all that?
No, thank you very much.
Yeah. Any questions?
Chair will, before we move forward with questions and comments, the chair should entertain a motion to authorize the signing of this contract. Made by Councilman Schutte, seconded by Councilman Tupper. Now, Councilman Danforth, if you would like to.
I'm not sure who, either the gentleman on the screen or you, but what are the instances, or where are the instances where this may not work for us, that it would fail to do what we're asking it to do? And then the next question is are we currently covered under budget on this one for the current year? So.
Where would it, well, Drew, I'll throw that one at you.
Hello, Council. Pleasure to meet you all. It's kind of odd seeing myself twice on the screen here, so bear with me. But if I understood the question correctly, it was what are potential occasions where the software might not be able to assist in the event of a cyber attack? Is that a good summarization?
Yeah, that would be correct.
So in today's threat landscape, as bluntly as I can leave it, it is nearly impossible to be able to predict every potential outcome that might be out there in terms of a new attacker, a new campaign that's being launched, and that's tied to the advances in the technology that we're using. What I can say is Darktrace has the ability to protect and defend using autonomous response, some patented technology around artificial intelligence for everything that it is capable of seeing. So I can't help you prevent something that is not being fed through the system, very bluntly, but any sort of network traffic that we are monitoring, endpoint traffic, email traffic, as we demonstrated through the proof of value, it is able to identify, detect, and respond using different response mechanisms to limit that behavior. So we can't say someone won't target you, but the moment that it does and targets your network, we have the ability to see it, we can respond to it.
And as far as your second question, if we have the budget for this, I've looked at my budget and my operational budget, and there's one item that I'm going to be using, or I want to use my CIP budget for as well, and everything works out. I don't have to ask for any more money or anything like this. This is something I can take out of money that's already there.
Any further comments or questions? Councilman Vilhauer.
I've got a question. I see in our packet that we're approving a 4-year contract at a total cost of $176,000 some odd dollars. But then if I look at the next page, if we execute this contract, that's if we execute it after March 31st. If we execute it presumably before that date, it's $157,000. Am I reading that correctly? So if that's the case, we need to get this done pronto.
Yeah, they're kind of, I wouldn't say rushing this a little bit, but the time is now, I would say. So Dark Trace, I believe, is at the end of their fiscal year, and we're able to work with them and get some pretty incredible pricing. Okay. So that's a big point.
Okay,
so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? City Attorney Roby?
Thanks, Mayor. I would just add that in case anybody was wondering on the 4-year nature of the agreement, we do have the requisite funding out clause that was included in the contract. So should the council fail to appropriate funds, we would be able to release ourselves from the agreement.
Thank you. Hearing no further comments or questions, the motion is to authorize the signing of the contract. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Pete. Now we will return to the top of our agenda. Item A is an application for a transfer of ownership of a retail malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license from Pearson Golf Management to the City of Watertown. For more information, we will go to our Finance Officer, Kristen Bobzien.
Thank you, Mayor. As stated, this is a transfer of ownership. With the changes that we've had at the golf course, this will change the management of the clubhouse under the city. So this just moves that malt beverage. All notice was given and everything's in order. I can answer any questions if there is any.
Thank you. Chair will will open a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify for this item, for or against? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and open it up for council action. Recommended motion is to approve the transfer of ownership, made by Councilman Paulson, seconded by Councilman Tupper. Any questions or comments, council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the transfer of ownership. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item B is an application for a new retail wine and cider license to the City of Watertown, doing business as Cattahill Crossings Golf Course. We will return to our Finance Officer, Kristen Bobzien.
Thank you, Mayor. This is pretty straightforward too. This will actually be a new retail on-off for the wine and cider license. Everything was published and notice has been given. If you have any questions, I can answer them.
Thank you very much. Chair will open a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on this? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and open it up for council action. To suggested motion is to approve the application, made by Councilman Schutte. Seconded by Councilman Vilhauer, was it? Or Danforth? Councilman Danforth. Any comments or questions, council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the application. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item C is an application for a new retail malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license to Maria Rodriguez at doing business as El Tapatio Grocery. Our Finance Officer, Kristen Bobzien, will illuminate us more.
Thank you, Mayor. This one, too, is a standard. This will be a new retail on-off sale malt beverage, South Dakota farm wine. This is to be able to sell that within the grocery store like other places have also done. So notice was given, public notice, everything's in order. So if there's any questions, I can answer them.
Thank you very much. Chair will open a public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to testify on this topic? Seeing none, I see the fire department has just arranged for an ambulance or a fire truck to go by. Just about 45 minutes late, gentlemen, but Thank you very much. Chair will close the public hearing, open it up for council action for the approval of the application. Made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Paulson. Any questions or comments, council? The motion is to approve the application. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item D is second reading of ordinance number 22-06, in a moment to the zoning designation for portions of Harmony Hill. For more information, we'll go to our Public Works Director, Heath Von Eye.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the second reading, so it would finalize the petition to rezone portions of the Harmony Hill development. And I'm going to pull up a map here for reference, specific to the areas to be rezoned. So if you recall from the description on first reading, there are certain portions of the Harmony Hill subdivision. This is a zoomed in area of the parts of land being rezoned. If you recall, the concept plan and previous zoning had been approved, and the developer came back through to amend their concept plan after the zoning was approved. So now this is a rezoning to correct some of the lot lines and right-of-way lines that are needed to accommodate the amendment to the concept plan. So that's simply what this exercise is doing here, where they had to shift some of the roadway alignments in their concept plan. This would then correct the zoning to correlate with those changes. With that, our senior planner, Randy Hanton, is here as well, and we'll stand by for any questions.
Thank you very much. I will open up a public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to testify on this topic? I'll close the public hearing and open it up for council action. Suggestion motion is to approve the amendment to the zoning designation. Made by Councilman Vilhauer, seconded by Councilman Schutte. Any questions or comments, council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the amendment to the zoning designation. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item E is an approval of resolution number 22-10, the plat of Harmony Hill, second edition to the municipality of Watertown, and authorization for the city manager to sign the development agreement. For more information, we'll go to our Public Works Director, Heath Von Eye.
Thank you again, Mayor. So this item obviously correlates with the previous item. With the rezone being finalized, the developer is bringing forward a plat for the land within their concept plan area. This proposed plat is in line with the approved concept plan. Per the recent zoning action, the lot lines are in conformance with the zoning areas. And it's a large area of land, so it's broken out into several pages of platting. But it essentially covers all the necessities for the platting of the right-of-way and the lots associated with the development within the subdivision. This particular subdivision and project has a PUD area, so you'll see some rather large lot configurations on this particular plat, which do all meet and conform to the subdivision regulations of the city. And again, I'll stand by for any questions with our senior planner, Brandy Hanton.
Thank you very much. Chair will entertain a motion from the council to approve this resolution and authorize the signature, made by Councilman Danforth and seconded by Councilman Tupper. Any questions or comments, council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the resolution and authorize the signature by the city manager. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item F is an approval of resolution number 22-12, authorizing an application to the South Dakota Board of Water and Natural Resources to request funding assistance for landfill cell 7. For more information, we'll return to our finance officer, Kristen Bobzien.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just kind of start this, but we also have Mike and then First District representatives here with us as well. This is actually going to be the public hearing for the authorization for the city to put in an application for SRF loan funding up to $2 million as it relates to the landfill Cell 7 project. This one's a little bit different because we're actually applying for a wastewater loan, but it's for the landfill department. So if there's any specific questions, we can kind of help answer them. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Did you have anything to add right now, Mike, or no? Wait for questions?
Yeah, I would just add that this cell project is the construction of Cell 7. It's also the refurbishing of the yard waste composting site, as well as stormwater improvements on the west perimeter of the D-cell area. And again, the current application that we're looking at tonight is for $1,640,000 with a term of 20 years and 2%. That comes with an annual debt service of about $109,622. We've given that information to our consultants, AE2S, who are currently updating our solid waste rate model. And they would anticipate that this could affect our monthly residential rate of about 14 cents. So that rate would go from $12.50 to $12.64, and we would likely see about $1.94 per ton increase on the cost of the MSW tipping fee at the landfill.
Thank you very much. I will open up a public hearing on this topic. Is there anyone who would like to testify on it? Seeing no one come forward, I'll close the public hearing and open it up for council action for the approval of this resolution. Made a motion by Councilman Vilhauer, seconded by Councilman Danforth. Any questions or comments, council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the resolution. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Next up, we are moving to item K, an Urban Renewal District 2021 Annual Report of Finances and Activities. Kristen Bobzien, our finance officer, will give us more information.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. This is actually a requirement for the city with the Urban Renewal District. This is the annual report of finances and activities as it is attached to the agenda. During the year 2021, there was really no activity by the board. There currently isn't a board. There was no action taken. We did spell out a few of the things that happened. The biggest thing was that the contract was approved for the downtown park as it relates to the Urban Renewal District. So with that, like I said, this is a requirement that I provide the financials, but as you can see, not a lot of activity. So I can answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the council? Councilman Vilhauer.
Kristen, fill me in here. The cash, the $60,000 roughly, do you have possession of that, or is it a development company? Because we got them involved a couple years ago, didn't we?
Can I answer? Okay. So what that is there was actually two. There was a restricted cash and then the unrestricted. What you see is the city's funds.
Okay.
This was for the assessments that were put on the Urban Renewal
Gotcha.
District in the past. The revolving loan funds that we've had, we did remit all those to the Watertown Development Company, and they've taken over that Urban Renewal loan process.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Oh, you do need a motion to approve that. Okay. Just to approve the report? Okay. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the report made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Schutte. All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item L is a second reading of ordinance number 22-07, an ordinance amending chapter 19 of the revised ordinances of Watertown, making revisions relating to taxi cabs and transportation network companies. We'll go to our city attorney, Matt Roby, for more information.
Thank you, Mayor. So at the March 7th meeting, you recall we had a first reading of this ordinance, and the proposed revisions at that meeting included removing the proof of necessity requirement under the tax cab ordinance, removing the 24-hour operation requirement, allowing transportation network company drivers to receive cash tips, and it provide for administrative approval of licenses by the finance officer rather than having each applicant come forward to the council each time. What it also did was create kind of an umbrella license for hire vehicles. And, you know, as the discussion ensued and with further conversation after the meeting, you know, it was determined that may be too big of an umbrella. It may catch charter buses and that sort of thing. And so subcommittee met here with Councilman Danforth, Bueller, and Tupper, and the finance officer. And we kind of hashed over the ordinance and The result was to narrow its application down to specifically taxi cabs rather than the for-hire in general. And so you'll see in there that taxi cabs are defined as whoa. Essentially, be a vehicle with a seating capacity for 7 persons or less, not including the driver, not traveling any definite or prescribed route, operated by a driver and carrying or accepting passengers for transportation in a vehicle in exchange for money or other thing of value. So it's really intended to capture the traditional type of taxi cab service. This does not include, there are exceptions in there. The personal vehicle is operated by transportation network company drivers, passenger services vehicles operated by non-for-profit or government entities, ambulances, and funeral cars. In addition to kind of that action to narrow down the application of this ordinance, we also, the group also made recommendations for the following: to increase insurance requirements for taxi cabs. The previous requirement had been $250,000 per incident. The recommendation is to increase the insurance requirement to $1 million per occurrence, as is fairly standard in the business world these days. In addition, there was recommendations to require the external display of a placard indicating the vehicle is a licensed taxi cab, requiring the internal display of an identification card indicating the driver is a licensed taxi cab driver, zero tolerance policy for alcohol and drug use by drivers and passengers in licensed taxi cabs, and finally, further clarifications on what types of offenses that could appear on a background check that would prohibit the approval of a license. And you'll see that list in there, and that's virtually, it is identical. There was a couple of redundancies, so I took those out, but it's identical to the state law requirements for transportation network companies. And so everything you see in there, I didn't just pull out of thin air. I took it verbatim from state law as it relates to transportation network companies. So all those items I just discussed, you'll see reflected in the red lines in the ordinance. And because of the substantive changes, no action can be taken on the ordinance tonight. So a final reading will have to occur at the next council meeting, barring any additional substantive changes.
Thank you. So there will be no action, but there can be comments or questions. Council? Councilman Danforth.
Got lots of them here for you, but no. Well, first of all, Matt, you've done a lot of work on this. Thank you for that, and I think we're making a lot of good progress. One of the concerns, when we went back originally as a group, we tried to identify what our purpose in even having an ordinance was, and really it was all about public safety. And I still believe in that. And so one of my questions is I'm not sure, as I've read through all this, it's not clear to me if we have, because we spoke about businesses that operate transportation services for their clientele, okay? A bar, for example. Are they covered under this in regards to safety of the vehicle, licensing of drivers, insurance? Is there any coverage of that? Because really the only difference is, one, you're providing it free as a service to your business, and the other is you're getting paid. So that's my first question is there a distinction there? Or are they able to do what they want in a manner that they see fit? And then, and I'm going to email you a couple other smaller ones, but it talks, you use the term operate when it comes to those entities that are coming from out of town. And we've talked about that. It's still not clear to me if I have a limousine service in Sioux Falls and I'm going to come here, and what does operate mean? So now I'm going to take people around town here, it's a wedding, whatever it is. But the second example is somebody brings a bus in, picks up a bunch of people, they take them somewhere, wherever that is, not in town. So what's the definition of operate when it comes to those types of out-of-town type vehicles coming into town.
City Attorney Roby?
Thank you, Mayor. So I think, that was kind of the discussion at the first time we had this was, this for-hire aspect. What if somebody has a bus in Sioux Falls, bus service comes up, takes people around at a wedding dance, et cetera, are they required to get a license? So what we went away from here, the intent was to go away from that, I guess, first of all. And so if I didn't capture that intent, then we can certainly look at it. So what is intended to go away from that issue is the 7 passengers or less aspect of the definition. And so to your first question about to the buses, I think that's clearly excluded. Limos, I don't know how many people fit in a limo, but I think it's more than 7. But if it's less than 7, or if it's 7 or less, we could perhaps reduce that number, just to, again, capture a traditional taxi cab service. And then as far as the bars go, again, I think from what I know of those types of shuttle bus services, they all drive vehicles that are have capacity for well over 7 people. I think they all have capacity for 15 to 20 or more people, I would guess. So that aspect of the definition would remove those examples you mentioned from being applicable under this or from this ordinance applying to those examples, so long as they weren't 7 passengers or less.
Councilman Danforth?
So jumping on to the greater than 7, if they run a free service, do they need the state's license then, even though it's a free scenario?
Yeah, in fact, it's my understanding, yes, Mayor, if I might.
Yes, please.
It's my understanding that even taxi cab drivers are required. I looked at state law again. I don't see anything in there that exempts taxi cabs, traditional, passenger vehicle taxi cabs from having to get some sort of commercial driver, either license or having the vehicle licensed. Perhaps the police here can maybe chime in on that, but, excuse me, I lost my train of thought. Can you repeat that? I went off on a tangent there.
Okay, when we talk about the taxis and TNCs, we're going to talk about 7 and less, right?
Yes, yep.
So what about those vans
excuse me,
that
yes,
are used
yep.
for the free service, so to speak?
So it's my understanding that those vehicles, those larger vehicles, again, would be required to get that state license, a state commercial driver's license or vehicle's license of some sort. If they're allowing for alcohol consumption in them, like the quote-unquote party buses do, they have to get there's a license they have to get through the state that allows for the consumption and sale of alcohol potentially on those vehicles. So again, the intention of the original iteration of the ordinance was to kind of capture all of them. Anybody that operates in the city for hire period, whether they need a license from the state or not, would be captured under our ordinance. Now this isn't trying to go away from that, where it would just be those smaller vehicles.
Councilman Tupper?
I believe, this is for Attorney Roby, I believe state license, when you talk about commercial license to transport individuals, it has to be something 15 and above before they have to have a state-issued commercial license. So.
Mayor, I did see that, and I think that that's the vehicle itself. But it was the way I read state law was that if you're driving passengers, period, you need a commercial driver's license. You're a personal commercial driver's license. The vehicle, I think you're right, it's 16 or more, then requires the vehicle to be licensed for commercial use. But again, from what I understood, from what I read, if you're driving passengers for hire, whether that's 1 or 50 people, you need a commercial driver's license of some sort.
I would still challenge that, because I know with the transit, we don't have to. That's why we keep most of our buses 14 passenger or less, because it's not required for a commercial driver's license under CDL.
All right. Any further questions or comments? Thank you. We'll see you at the next council meeting on that. Item M is a first reading of an ordinance establishing establishing a zoning designation of I-1 Light Industrial District for the property to be known as R&R First Edition. For more information, we'll go to our Public Works Director, Heath Von Eye.
Thank you, Mayor. So you may wonder, where is R&R First Edition? And it just so happens there's a map for that. So I'll pull it up here, share it to the team screen. This is out on the east side of town in the Pheasant Ridge Industrial Park that the city helped establish some years back. And there's a parcel of land within there that is currently not annexed or zoned. And so this is the first reading of the zoning that would help step that in the right direction. The developer is seeking to annex and zone this as I-1 Light Industrial, which, as you can see by this map, the lighter pink shading is currently I-1 zoning that's within the city, so it would be logical extension and continuation of that zoning district. Again, you're out on the east side of town. Here's Highway 12 on this map. You've got the truck stop and the hotels and the tire store and whatnot along the highway here. And then this gap of land that is just south of Glacial Lakes Rubber and Plastic. Again, first reading tonight, and the subsequent annexation resolution and any platting would come to follow. With that, I'll stand by for questions, and again, the senior planner is here to assist as needed.
Thank you very much. I'll open it up for comments or questions from the council. Pretty easy night and for that. No questions or comments. All right. We'll see you back for a second reading. Item N is a first reading of ordinance number 22-09, amending the zoning map of the city of Watertown for Prairie Haven Addition from A1 agricultural to R1C compact single family residential district. Our Public Works Director, Heath Von Eye, will give us more information.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I've shared a map to the team screen. This is now on the westerly side of town, up by west to central part of town, out by the airport. Just on the west side of the airport, you have Golf Course Road. And immediately west of that is the Prairie Haven subdivision. You recall that we have annexed and zoned this as a placeholder zoning of the Ag District. Now that the developer is getting closer to platting and developing the area, they wish to rezone this portion of Ag land to R1C, compact single-family residential district, again, to accommodate their first phase of development in this area. With that, I'll stand by for any questions on this.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the council? All right. Thank you very much. We'll see that back for a second reading as well. Item O is an approval of a resolution for the plat of CAC's 4th edition and into the municipality of Watertown, and authorization for the city manager to sign the development agreement and construction access road agreement. Public Works Director Heath Von Eye, please tell us more about this.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this is a plat of CAC's 4th edition. The plat is in conformance with the previously approved concept plan and has been recommended for approval by the Planning Commission as well. And again, I'll pull up a map here for reference to show the council the general area being platted. This is on the north side of Lake Pelican, and a continuation of the previous phases of the CAC subdivision. As this, let me zoom in a little bit here. As this subdivision continues westerly, you can see that the lot sizes continue to grow a little bit for more of a rural residential feel and development in this area. You can see that they continue with the more, or the higher density residential units that are common to most neighborhoods throughout the community, and then they become to get a little larger in size as you move west into the subdivision. The development agreement addresses some concerns that were brought forth from the township. You'll see 42nd Street Southwest is on the west side of this subdivision, and that street was a point of discussion as it's owned and maintained. It's in the jurisdiction of the township. That concern of the increased development obviously increasing traffic on the roadway. The main concern was construction traffic. So one of the items in this action item for tonight is including a construction access road agreement, which stipulates that the developer, any of their assignees or purchasers of these lots must travel through an approved route of city streets in order to get into the subdivision for construction activities, and that is to help prevent the township's road from becoming in disrepair and prematurely failing due to the construction activities. That's one of the agreements on there. And then also the standard development agreement that commits the developer to build out the public infrastructure as required and approved by the construction plans in compliance with the city's engineering design standards. With that, I see the developer is here, Mr. Horning, and our senior planner as well, and we'll stand by for any questions.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve the plat and authorize the signatures on the agreements. Made by Councilman Schutte, seconded by Councilman Danforth. Now we are open for comments or questions. Councilman Danforth.
Mayor, if I can ask us maybe of Heath, if that'd be okay?
I will grant latitude. Yep.
A couple questions. Your reference of, is it 42nd Street?
Correct.
I think it is. That portion that's in white, that's there on your map now, will that be a city, that portion be city street?
So I believe, if I recall right, Brandy can correct me if I'm wrong, that portion was annexed to the center line of that roadway at the time of annexation, which happened years ago with one of the earlier phases of the subdivision, and was a common practice for how we annexed areas on the outskirts or the edges of town, as most of our annexations are. So it's currently annexed to the center line of roadway, and as far as jurisdiction or maintenance goes, what I would see continue to happen there as far as annual roadway maintenance is that whoever's maintaining that road now today would continue to do so. What we did, however, put into the development agreement is a requirement for the developer to pay their prorated share of the cost of upgrading that road to a city street section. We're not requiring him to build that road to a city street section right now because only half of it is annexed and there's a short segment of it for that whole entire run of 42nd. So we didn't see the value in building out a curb and gutter street section there on this interim basis. Does that help answer your question, Councilman Danforth?
It does. And then when we're done with this, if you could, that way we're not keeping the individuals that are here to speak to this, I'd like to have just a little discussion on the half-street scenario, because where we've done that in the past has created problems with those people that live in those areas. And I'd like to know whether, is that a normal practice in other communities or what? I do know, especially I know up in my ward, we've got streets that are that way, and I feel questions and concerns with that on a pretty regular basis. Seems like winter is always worse. So getting through this, I think that's a discussion that I'd like to have just to understand at some point. Doesn't have to be today, I guess, but we need to talk about the use of partial streets or half streets.
Thank you very much. Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I didn't read the development agreement 100% to know, but with that, is it only going to be the two lots that have frontage on 42nd that would be required to pay for that road? Because, and the reason I ask that is because we've ran into so many issues, and that's why we don't have roads being paved today that should be paved. It's because it falls, the responsibility of paving that road falls on two owners, and then they fight back on it over and over and over again. And I don't want to see that happen going forward if we can prevent it.
It's not necessarily a question, but Public Works Director Von Eye, would you like to address that?
Absolutely. So Councilman Paulson, we did take that into consideration, and given some past experiences, did not want to hang this cost of that section of roadway on those two lots. So that is why the developer is being required to pay that upfront cost as part of the development agreement. So that'll come from the developers at the developer's expense and will not be an issue with those two lot owners in the future. What we will do with that that money that is received in is make note on these particular two lots so that it's clear that any city reconstruction of 42nd Avenue doesn't get pushed back on those lot owners because it's taken care of at the time of development.
Thank you. Mr. Horning, I know that wasn't a question for you, but just if you're okay with that, you can nod your head or the agreement. You don't have to if you don't need to. Okay, yep. I just wanted to make sure that that was on the record, so thank you. If you have a question, I can grant some latitude. You come up to the microphone, though.
I'm Steve Horning. Do you have something against daylight savings time?
I do not.
Your clock's wrong.
We're just, actually, would that be ending the meeting earlier or later? I can't even keep track, but thank you very much. Any further comments or questions? With that, the motion is to approve the plat and authorize the signatures. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item P is an authorization for the police department to add one full-time communications officer position in the 911 center. I was going to say Chief Toomey, but we have Troy Van Dusen, our 911 director and county commissioner.
Much better looking. No, he's gone, I can say that, right? No. Good evening, Mayor, Madam Manager, City Manager, members of the council. Troy Van Dusen, the 911 manager. Been in that position since July of this year. I appear in front of you this evening asking for your support and authorization to add one full-time communications officer position to our staff. This would eliminate two existing part-time positions that we currently have. Currently, our center has an authorized staff of 12 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees. We provide 24-hour dispatching services to over 52,000 residents each and every day here in our region. Unfortunately, due to the demands of involved in training and certifications, and it's become very difficult for us to effectively train and then retain those part-time employees. This has left us routinely short-staffed with part-time employees always in training and not lasting long enough to complete our extensive training program. Since 2015, the 911 Center has hired 18 part-time employees. Out of those, only 3 of them lasted longer than 1 year. So you can see the issue associated with that as far as the turnaround. 4 of them were hired full-time when those openings became available, and all 4 of those part-timers that did go full-time have remained with us during that time. Communication officers undergo extensive in-house training that lasts approximately 8 to 9 weeks for full-time communications officers and 12 weeks for our part-time employees. At the conclusion of that training, the recruit must then attend a 2-week certification course in PEER, followed by another week for emergency medical dispatch certification and another week for emergency fire dispatcher certification. So the request tonight is to eliminate the 2 part-time positions, which we're currently budgeted for in the amount of $57,650, and convert those 2 part-time positions into 1 full-time position, which will allow us to create another shift, basically, of 1 person to staff our center from noon to 8, and that is the time of day when we need to have a 3rd or 4th dispatcher on the floor in dispatch. And so I'm sure you're wondering how we're going to do this cost-wise. Well, we've done the math on that, and if we take our 2 part-time positions, we've budgeted $57,650. Earlier this year, I was in front of you, very proud of a non-emergency dispatch contract that we had established with our county partner, Grant County, in the amount of $24,000. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to use that $24,000 in conjunction with the $57,650 to fund this full-time position. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Chair will entertain a motion to authorize the full-time position.
So moved.
Made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Paulson. Any comments or questions? Councilman Shetty?
Yeah, it appears there's thank you, Mr. Van Huzen. Quite an investment for part-time, isn't it? And so I can just see the logical move is to put that investment to a full-time position, because it's a lot more than running a hot dog stand for finding a part-time guy, right?
Yeah, Councilman, yeah, absolutely, you're absolutely correct, and that leads to a lot of frustration when you're training people, and they don't last long enough to get through the training program. It's hard on the staff, and it's hard on our folks. So we employee history within our center, full-time employees, we have longevity with them. And so this position, if approved this evening by you folks, will hopefully increase that longevity with another full-timer. So,
Councilman Vilhauer.
Troy, it looks like this makes a whole lot of sense. I guess I'll direct a question to our finance officer. Chris, I mean, have you vetted these numbers? I mean, they make sense, and they have your okay?
Yes, the police department worked with me to make sure we had the correct numbers in terms of a full-time position, so everything looks in order.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments? The motion is to authorize the position. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
thank you very much. And can I make one more comment?
Please
Mr.
do.
Mayor? Once again, the invitation's open to any of you. I know a few of you have walked through our center. We would love to have you come through and take a look at the operation. So we appreciate your support. Staff is important, and we have a great staff. I'd just like to add that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Item Q is an approval of a bid award for the Watertown Regional Landfill Cell 7 construction project to Dan Hart Patrol Service in the amount of $1,793,334.80. For more information, we'll go to our Public Works Director, Heath Von Eye.
Thank you, Mayor. So as you recall, we discussed earlier in the meeting a loan application through the state's SRF program for construction of landfill Cell 7 out at the city's regional landfill. That project has been designed and bid with the assistance of Houston Engineering and internal staff. And we've, through the bid process, have brought forward now a bid recommendation with Dan Hart Patrol Services for a bid amount of $1.79 million. This was lower than the engineer's estimate by about 18%. The engineer's estimate was just shy of $2 million at $1.95 million. The budget for this project is also, should be noted, is in the CIP fund for the landfill, and is in the amount of a little over $2 million, about a little over $2.1 million is the budget. So well within budget, received some competitive bids, and the contractor is located in Wyoming, but after some research on their work history, and there's no concern with awarding to this bidder. With me tonight is wastewater solid waste superintendent and also assistant city engineer, and we can stand by for any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Chair will entertain a motion for the approval of this bid. Made by Councilman Danforth, seconded by Councilman Vilhauer. Any comments or questions, Council? Councilman Danforth.
I'm going to go. Cell 7, just take a minute for the public's purpose. Tell us what a cell is. Tell us where Cell 7 puts us in regards to our planning for the future. If you would, where we're at today, what does Cell 7 mean to us?
Thank you. Yeah, Cell 7 has approximately 7 to 10 years of waste capacity. That depends upon the waste flow, the density we achieve as we place the waste in the landfill, and how much clay cover we use. Cell 7 is indicated up here on the bottom center of that in the orange area. It's directly contiguous to the east perimeter of cell number 1. As you can see, there's a number of cells. We have a total of 9 cells in our landfill. We've built and filled cells 1 through 6 and filled them to grade, a little bit above grade. Now cell 7, that's the next one in progression, and then there's still 8 or 9 to come. But those 9 cells right now, we've got about approximately 43 years of remaining waste capacity at the landfill. That's subject to change as some years, you have a lot of demolition. You see the tonnage come up quite a bit. So we'd estimate that the landfill should be with us till about the year 2065. In addition to that, just to the top right corner of that picture, that we do have another 80 acres that's leased out as farm ground right now. So that's where the landfill would grow in the future. And I guess I would just comment that the compost pad requires refurbishing about every 8 to 10 years. And then the stormwater improvements that we're installing there in the blue, those are sized to accommodate the flow that will be produced by the landfill when it's fully utilized, filled to capacity. So they're the right size ditches and pipes to contain all of that stormwater, collect it, convey it off the site away from the D-cell as clean stormwater. And the compost repairs are up there, the red areas in the top right corner. And that's an asphalt composting pad. And again, every 8 to 10 years, we've got to do some rework on that to maintain the hard surface. It's protecting the clay liner that's below that to protect what's underneath the pad. So,
Thank you very much. Councilman Shetty.
Thank you, Mayor. Have you noticed, you said there's a surge once in a while depending on construction, demolition. Is there an average, like a trend, or are you noticing an uptick in just yearly averages?
Yeah, last year we see a little downtick. The year before was higher when we had a lot of demolition, but right now we're seeing about 56,700 ton of MSW, municipal solid waste. That's what the fancy term for garbage coming in or demolition. And about 8,300 of those tons are collected curbside here in Watertown from residents. And the rest of that tonnage is from industries, commercial entities, institutions, and we service several counties as well, so a regional landfill. So.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments, Council? Hearing none, the motion is to approve the bid. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item R is an approval of the bid award for the 2022 neighborhood street reconstruction of 12th Avenue Northeast to J&J Earthworks. Public Works Director Heath Von Eye, please tell us more.
Thank you, Mayor. As indicated, the low bidder, the apparent low bidder on this project was J&J Earthworks. A total bid amount of $673,000 and some change. This bid was also lower than the engineer's estimate by quite a bit, about 31% lower. Funding for this project is in the annual CIP fund and the 212 fund. That amount that is budgeted is $1.5 million. This bid is under the engineer's estimate and within budget, and we're recommending approval to the council. I also have a map of this area so we can talk about the exact location so everybody's a little bit aware of where we're doing some street work. So this is for 12th Avenue North on the easterly side of town. You'll see 19th Street on the east side of this map. Let me zoom in here. So the extents go from 11th Street East all the way east to 19th Street East. In this project, I'd have to defer to our Assistant City Engineer Justin to talk in more detail on what exactly the project includes. But it'll be new paving at a minimum and possibly some reconstruction of some segments of curb and gutter and things of that nature. With that, I'll stand by for questions.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the bid award. Made by Councilman Tupper, seconded by Councilman Shetty. Any comments or questions, Council? Councilman Shetty.
Just a quick question for Mr. Von Eye. Granted, there's probably a greater discussion we can have some other time, but what is just in a brief determination on how do you determine like 12th Avenue versus 13th or versus another area of town? Is there just for us, even for the public to understand, well, why that neighborhood, not my neighborhood? Just wondering if there's maybe a short answer for something like that.
Yeah, I can give you the as abbreviated answer as I can to that, but the City Engineering Office works closely with the Street Department, and together we manage the city's pavement management system. Our pavement management system has a comprehensive assessment of every street in town and its condition. And that pavement management system also, it rates every street in town based on its condition. So it's been a physical inspection of every road. It shows the distresses on each one of the pavements, whether they be asphalt or concrete. And that pavement condition index is really what puts each road on our list of projects from, worst to best or best to worst, depending on how you're looking at the list. That pavement condition index runs from 0 to 100, just like a grading scale from back in high school. And those that are 80 and above are really good condition. But when you start dropping below 80 and you get into the 60s and down into the 50s, some of our streets are as low as 40s. That's where they become all the more troublesome as far as road quality is concerned. So we typically, like any other pavement management system, we take the worst first scenario and try to address the road conditions throughout the community. 12th Avenue North has been on our list for a few years now. It got pushed off a couple times due to budgetary constraints and other priorities coming up in prior years. As you know, the spring can bring some surprises on some of our roads, and we've had to push this one off mainly for that reason. We've had to focus these annual pavement management dollars to those other streets as they might pop up from time to time.
Thank you, Heath.
Councilman Chuddy, did you have a follow-up? Okay. Councilman Danforth.
Again, if I can refer to Heath on this. Well, first of all, I'm glad to see this one on our list. This one's been a tough one for us for a long time. A lot of concerns and complaints about the people in Northeast Watertown and certainly those that live on the streets. So that's really good. And that when it's done, it'll be nice to not have that little orange cone slalom course that we've had for a few years. But we're coming to that time of year right now where there's a lot of concern by the public with the condition of our streets. And it happens every spring. I had the opportunity to drive out into the country and our state highways, and our highways are really heaving and they're quite bad right now. So it's no surprise that we see this in town. But Amanda or Heath or Kristen, whomever, but can we remind the people what we've done for 2022 in regards to what our road repair budget was, what we've looked at for 2022, maybe what we've done for 2023. I know we've had a very serious look at what those dollars are in trying to incorporate more funds to street repair.
City Manager Mack, did you want to field that question?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I can't give you the exact dollar amount. We can look that up and get back to you, but we did double the street maintenance dollars for 2022. We've not planned for the 23 budget. There are some projects in the CIP going forward, but for general maintenance, we haven't put that budget together yet. And we'll look up the exact number for 22 and get it out to you.
Mayor, if I remember right, and just rough numbers, it seems like it was, I'm going to pick something, 2 point something, and we've gotten to where we're doing 4 point something now for this coming year. So that's a sizable increase, and so hopefully the public will start to see that commitment on our part to get our roads repaired and fixed, and it won't all happen at one time, but if we stay attentive to those needs in the future too, hopefully we can get there. So.
Yes, thank you very much. Heath, would you like to add something?
Yeah, Mayor, thank you. Some information that might also be helpful to Councilman Danforth, the General Counsel, and the public. Part of that pavement management system that we have helps establish budgetary recommendations for the community's roadway system. And when that was established back in 2017, I believe it was, they were recommending to get ahead of the amount of damaged streets that we have throughout our community. We'd want to be spending roughly $3.6 million, I think was their targeted funds. We ended up having to settle for less than that. We're in around the $2 million mark for quite a few years, and have now, as we've indicated, started to bump that up more and more each year. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know that was another tool that's part of that pavement management program is actual budgetary recommendations that come based on cost estimates for repairing all those streets that are rated throughout the system. So it's an excellent tool and resource that we look at as well on how we help to justify additional funds for the CIP each year.
Vital information, of course, is the actual dollars, and for that we will go to our finance officer, Kristen Bobzien.
Thank you, Mayor. I was able to just pull up the 2022 budget here, and we did quite significantly increase our mill and overlay. So that is the $2 million budget for mill and overlay. We've been sitting more around 950,000 for that. So that's quite an increase. $1 million is going towards the 3rd Avenue Bridge and Street project. And then what you just approved award of was for the neighborhood street improvements. It's 1.5. So the total street improvement budget with there's some other minor parking lots and alleys and other stuff like that. The total in the street is $5.7 million. So.
And what was it at before?
It was in 2020 we spent 2.1 million, and in 19 we spent 3. So. Yep.
Thank you very much. Any further comments or questions? The motion is to approve the bid award. All those in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item T is an authorization of work to be performed for the Boys and Girls Club pneumatic controls upgrade and air conditioning replacement to Johnson Controls Incorporated, and authorizing the city manager to sign all necessary documents. We'll go to our Public Works Director, Heath Von Eye, for more information.
Thank you once again, Mayor. This is a city-owned facility, and we have contractual requirements to help upgrade and keep up some of the systems within the facility. So with that comes the action before the council tonight to upgrade one of the rooftop air conditioning units. I am fairly removed from the specifics of this project, but Assistant City Engineer Peterson is here tonight, and he's helped establish this bid award recommendation with, of course, the assistance from the Boys and Girls Club, who are full well aware of the circumstance as well. And Justin and I will stand by for any questions, or unless Justin has any more commentary to add.
City Engineer Peterson, we miss you, so please testify.
Thank you, Mayor. Just some, the AC unit that's being replaced is about 25 years old, so it's definitely towards the end of its useful life. And they've had some issues over the last few years, so that's all I have.
All right. Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to authorize the work to be done and the signatures to be performed. Made by Councilman Vilhauer, seconded by Councilman Schutte. Any questions or comments? Councilman Vilhauer.
I've got a question. I'm not sure if I should direct it towards Justin or Heath, or maybe it's a Matt question, actually. I see that one proposal was received. Were we required to get bids for that? Was that the only bid we received?
Anyone want to take it?
I guess I hadn't even
City Attorney
looked at
Roby.
this item specifically. It appears to me that it is below the bid threshold.
Okay, so it wasn't required to be bid then?
But I don't know. Was it bid though?
It was quoted. It's under the $100,000 threshold, so we can get quotes. And Johnson Controls, I believe, is the one that does maintenance out there. So
okay. Well, that probably answers my next question. Were other firms considered, or were they the go-to firm to get this done?
I would say that they're the go-to firm just because they're familiar with the system that's out there.
And Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess, can someone explain why? I think I know some of this, but I need explanation of why we're paying for the Boys and Girls Club.
Our city manager, Matt, can explain more about that.
Well, I will attempt to muddle my way through an explanation. My understanding is that the city owns the facility, and we have an agreement in place with the Boys and Girls Club that any maintenance of the facility, which includes the roof, HVAC, things of that nature, we are responsible for. City Attorney Roby can correct me if I'm wrong.
Follow-up question, Councilman?
Okay, that's kind of what I thought. I guess I don't have a problem with this one, but going forward, I guess those types of agreements have typically burned us. I don't know if it's a burn us or cost us a lot of money in the past. I don't know if that's something we can look at in the future. I just know that there's been a few that we end up paying a lot more money over the long term on things like this. So I guess thanks for the explanation.
City Manager Mack, I think, has something to say about that.
I would just add that, we continue to have a great relationship with the Boys and Girls Club. There's certainly room for additional conversations about the lease itself, what we're responsible, what they're responsible for. We haven't engaged in any of those discussions yet in my time here, largely because there's a lot of other things happening and it just hasn't been top of the priority list. I know prior to my time, there were some rather thoughtful conversations around the lease, and an agreement wasn't able to be reached, so we just continue as we have.
Councilman Danforth.
Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't our obligation only to the original or older part of the building and not the new part that they added on 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
City Attorney Roby?
As far as our obligation to these types of maintenance items, I believe.
So technically, the addition to the building that is ours is also ours. So until further discussions occur and that gets hashed out, that we own the addition as well.
I'm not talking about ownership. I'm talking about responsibility for that higher level of maintenance, which per the agreement to allow them to add on, they were accepting that responsibility for anything that was the new part of the building.
Perhaps verbally, but not in writing.
Can't tell you if that's true or not, but
I can tell you that's true.
Any follow-up, Councilman? Any further questions, Council? Hearing none, the motion is to authorize the work to be performed and the signatures to be executed. Did I get that right? Yep. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Council, for an expeditious work to get through the agenda. It was very lengthy tonight. We are on to old business. Is there any old business?
Mayor.
City Attorney Roby?
Thank you. I just, as we were talking about the taxi cab and transportation network company ordinance, I had those, the licensure of the vehicle and the licensure of the individual mixed up in my head. So Councilman Tupper is correct that there's only certain types of vehicles for which you need a commercial driver's license to drive. But the universe of vehicles that are required to be registered as commercial vehicles is much larger than that, but there's only certain vehicles that are commercial driver's licenses required for. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify that, and also to invite any sort of feedback on the ordinance between now and the next meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further old business? Any new business? Any liaison member reports? Councilman Vilhauer.
Actually, I've got a couple. Thank you, Mayor. I represent two boards, and I'll hit both of them briefly. Upper Big Sioux, as the public is probably aware, and we had devoted quite a bit of time at our work session last Monday night. Roger Foote is retiring as of April 15th. First of all, a thank you to Roger. He's got right at 20 years of service into the Upper Big Sioux. Discussions going on concerning the future of that, what it looks like as far as administration, funding, etc. So stay tuned for that. I think the goal would be that we're going to end up with something that looks fairly similar as far as operations or results at least, but again, to be determined going forward there. Airport, as the public's probably aware, it was front page story in the PO today. Todd Syrie, our manager, has resigned his position. A thank you to him. He served out there for 12 years. So that was newsworthy relative to the airport. January, February numbers strong, but we are definitely down from 2 years ago. 2020 is kind of our barometer right now. We are off about 20% for January and February from where we were 2 years ago. Obviously, the changeover from SkyWest solely to Denver Air Connection is part of that, but being studied and looked at, still strong. We had 913 employments in February, but boardings are somewhat down. As a result of that, I think probably before us probably in one of the May meetings, we're going to see a marketing plan being put forward concerning some ideas out there. A marketing plan for forward is going to be paid for, as I understand it, primarily from the federal COVID dollars that we are receiving through the state out there. So we'll see something come before us. And if I'm not correct, if I'm not speaking correctly here, Manager Mack, you're looking at me like I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, you know everything that you're talking about.
Okay, so anyway, we'll see that coming before us sometime in the next couple of months. And one last thing, just last Friday, there was a kind of an ad hoc committee comprised of some airport board, a couple council members, staff, Public Works Director Heath Von I was out there looking at putting together something, if you want to call it a wall of fame or a hall of fame, recognizing contributors to air service over the years here in Watertown, along with maybe some kind of historical perspective or artwork, whatever it may be, that would definitely be in addition to the terminal out there. Kind of a work in process. You're going to hear more information about that because a lot of exciting ideas tossed around the table at that meeting last Friday afternoon. So you'll hear more about that coming forward relative to what might be happening out there in conjunction with the new airport terminal. And lastly, I just want to say we have an outstanding board that works with our airport. Very dedicated individuals that know their stuff. I think most of them are pilots themselves. So we should be grateful that we've got the board that we've got out there in conjunction with our airport. So,
Thank you very much. Councilman Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So I sit on the Watertown Housing Authority Board, and I guess the conversation that's really led the last few months is obviously low-income housing, and they're also struggling to get Section 8 landlords, and I had a long discussion with them about why that might be, and it sounds like it might be paperwork related. But they are kind of pleading with the public to kind of help if they can, or to get more volunteers to do that. It's not a bad program at all. I think that has a negative connotation in the public eye, but really, they get great tenants and they get the funding necessary, so you're getting your payments on time. But that really just came back to the low-income housing that people are really needing, and that's what we're trying to figure out how to move forward as that board. Just because obviously this isn't a new discussion for anyone, but we're really seeing, especially with rising costs and inflation numbers, there's a lot of concern out there that we're going to run into housing issues very soon. So I guess I just want to start that discussion with you guys, let you guys know that. I'll let the public know that if there's some landlords out there that would be willing to get that that paperwork going, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much. Any other liaison member reports? Chair is going to ask for some latitude and go back to new business. I'd like to say to the community that we have started to work on raising some money for a fireworks show for the 4th of July here in Watertown. It's a big draw for the community when we can have one. Our goal again this year is to have it be the largest in South Dakota. Councilman Randy Tupper has stepped forward graciously and volunteered to spearhead that. We definitely want contributions. We want help. Councilman Tupper, would you like to say anything more about that?
Let's make it big and make it bang real loud. But no, anybody can reach out to me, and if you want to help out, just let me know. And like I say, let's get this done. It's been big in Watertown for years, and let's keep it going.
And I'll add on, I've talked with the people at the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and there is a marked increase in activity and visitors to Watertown when we can advertise it as the largest in South Dakota. And I don't see any reason why we shouldn't have that in Watertown again this year. I also know that talking with the people who program the fireworks, they need the time to know what their budget is and to program the computers and all of that and order the stuff. So if you want to reach out right now and contact Councilman Tupper or myself or anybody, please do. We're looking to get this settled as much as we can. Councilman?
Do you remember what the total was we were looking for?
I think we're looking at for about 35,000.
Yep, that's what I thought.
$1 million. Yeah, we could go really big. $1 million. So, thank you very much, and thank you, community, for that. There is no need to go in for executive session. For that, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Made by Councilman Danforth, seconded by Councilman Villauer. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Good night, and God bless Water.